At the beginning, Kazuaki Okabe was studying and thinking to himself that his name was Kazuaki Okabe, a second year in high school. While studying, he reflected that he spent all his free time studying even on the way to school and during breaks, so that he would not fail his exams. He firmly told himself that he refused to give in to any worldly desires. However, his classmate Kiara Sano kept locking eyes with him. Seeing her, he wondered if she might be in love with him. He immediately gasped internally and told himself that was close, he had almost gotten the wrong idea again. Frustrated with himself, he questioned why he kept reading too much into these things. At that moment, Nina commented that the term had just started, and he was already studying, calling it admirable. She also remarked that it looked like he still did not have any friends, though. He replied that he did not mind and explained that he had decided to focus on his studies during high school. She responded that if that was the case, then she guessed she would have him all for herself again this year. He thought about Hina Nishina, noting that she was cheerful and popular, the complete opposite of him. Trying to calm himself, he reasoned that this was just how extroverts behaved. She suddenly noticed his face and pointed out that it was beet red, asking if he was okay. He answered that he was fine, but internally admitted that he was not fine at all. She stared at him and mentioned that it was their second year in the same class, and once again, their seats were next to each other. She joked that it had to be fate at that point. Hearing that, he wondered why she kept saying things that led him on. Nervously, he told her that he thought it would be best if she did not say things like that. Confused, she asked what he meant. Blushing, he explained that it was because she was cute. She froze for a moment, tilting her head in confusion while blushing slightly. Meanwhile, he panicked internally, thinking that he would end up getting the wrong idea again. He suddenly gasped and worried that what he had just said might have sounded creepy. Curious, she asked what he meant by that and told him to explain. Flustered, he replied that he just wanted to study. At that moment, Kiara walked over to him and stood right in front of his desk, leaning her face close to his. Surprised, he wondered what was going on with her. She softly called his name, asking, "Kazuaki, Okabe-kun?" He responded hesitantly. She then placed a piece of paper on his desk and told him that it was her contact information before calmly walking away. Shocked, he blurted out in confusion. Nina asked whether he knew Sano. He immediately replied that he did not know her at all. She commented that Sano was mysterious, beautiful, and with a nice figure, and that she had never seen her talking to any friends either. Yet she had just given him her contact information. Laughing, she suggested that Sano probably wanted to be friends with him and congratulated him. However, when she noticed him blushing, she slowly stopped laughing and looked at him curiously. Meanwhile, he began wondering if it could be that she was actually in love with him. Later, while walking outside, he firmly told himself that he would not get the wrong idea. He reasoned that she probably had a good reason for giving him her contact information. Suddenly, someone called out to him excitedly, greeting him as Aki-kun. He recognized her as Rui. She happily said that it had been a while and that she was glad they were attending the same school again. He thought about Rui Kyuan, remembering that she was his childhood friend who lived nearby and was a year younger than him. Noticing the stack of letters she was holding, he asked if those were love letters. Surprised that she had already received so many on the first day of the new term, she casually confirmed that they were. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew past them, causing several letters to fly into a nearby fountain. Rui cried out in alarm. He warned her to be careful with her new uniform. However, she insisted that it was fine and hurried to retrieve the letters, explaining that the people who wrote them had done so while thinking of her. Smiling warmly, she said she could not let them go to waste. Watching her, he thought that she was incredibly cool. He offered his handkerchief so she could dry them. She thanked him with a smile. He remarked that she was still as cool as ever. Blushing slightly, she teasingly asked if he was falling for her all over again. She added that she could say the same about him, he was still just as kind as ever. Embarrassed, he awkwardly thanked her. He clenched his hands nervously while she laughed. At that moment, several girls called out to Rui from behind. She smiled and told him she was glad they had the chance to catch up, before saying she would see him later. He nodded in agreement. After she left, he sighed. Suddenly, Kiara appeared behind him. Startled, he exclaimed in shock. Upon seeing her, she casually asked if he wanted to walk home together. Confused, he questioned it internally, wondering why. She asked if he did not want to. Blushing, he quickly clarified that it was not that, but he hesitated to explain further. She simply smiled. In the distance, Rui noticed the two of them together. The scene shifted to Kazuaki and Kiara, walking side by side. Nervously, he asked what it was that she wanted from him. She looked confused and replied that she did not want anything in particular, she had simply wanted to walk home with him. Internally, he admitted that he was scared because he had absolutely no idea what she was thinking. She then said that there was actually one thing. Curious and tense, he waited for her to continue. Smiling, she asked if she could call him Kazu-kun, since his name was Kazuaki. He reacted in shock but awkwardly agreed. He noticed that she looked happy and slightly flushed, which made him blush as well. She then suddenly remembered something and asked him to give her his contact information too. Completely confused, he wondered what in the world was going on. Later, the scene shifted to him, studying while looking completely dazed. Satori told him to focus and lightly knocked his head. He thought about Satori Inoue, his cousin who attended the prestigious college he was aiming for, and who also served as his tutor. He explained that a lot had happened that day, leaving him a bit distracted. After a pause, he suggested that since it was the first day of the new term, maybe they should call it quits for the day. However, he quickly insisted that he wanted to continue studying a bit longer. She patted his head and agreed that they could push for a little while longer. Blushing slightly, he reassured himself that he had made up his mind not to get the wrong idea again. His thoughts drifted back to the past, to his older sister's friend who used to visit their house often. He remembered how she would cheerfully announce that she had come to see him and even hug him excitedly. Embarrassed, he would complain that it counted as sexual harassment even if the genders were reversed. She would simply laugh it off. He had always thought that she liked him too much. All the affectionate touching and sweet words had been enough to confuse a teenage boy. However, during the winter of his third year in middle school, right before the high school entrance exams, she suddenly married someone else. The shock had been devastating. He had been convinced that they both felt the same way, and the heartbreak had completely disrupted his studies, causing him to fail getting into his first-choice school. Back in the present, Satori commented that he had been doing so well with his studies before getting sick right before the exam. He quietly thought that she had no idea about the heartbreak he had gone through. Needless to say, he had no intention of letting anyone find out. As she laughed, he reflected that, although he acted serious on the outside, he was actually overly self-conscious on the inside and constantly thought about romance. Blushing, he asked Satori how she managed to overcome worldly desires. He explained that he had seen how serious she was about studying and wanted to be like that too. If she had any hidden tips, he begged her to tell him. She simply repeated the phrase "hidden tips," then made a silent gesture and said that it was a secret. Shocked, he thought that she was refusing to teach him the one thing he truly needed to know. She then added that it was important to desire things every now and then. At that moment, his phone received a notification. Satori commented that it was unusual for him to get a message. He checked it and realized that it was from Sano. The message read, "Let's get along well tomorrow." Blushing, he once again wondered if she might actually be in love with him. However, he immediately scolded himself internally and insisted that he absolutely would not get the wrong idea. That night, the perspective shifted. Nina was heading for a bath, Rui was sitting on her bed, and Satori was standing nearby. Each of them remembered the expression Kazuaki had made earlier while blushing. At the same time, all three of them thought that he made that kind of face in front of other girls, too. They had believed they were the only one. Nina puffed her cheeks and thought that he had even called her cute. She reminded herself that she was cute and had a huge chest. Since he had been sitting next to her for the second year in a row, she felt she should obviously be number one. Meanwhile, Rui stared blankly at a picture while thinking about the past, remembering how he once said he liked cool people. She believed she had become cooler than any other girl, and since she was his only childhood friend, she assumed she should be his number one. At the same time, Satori was crying while drinking. She wondered if he liked smart and mature girls, since he had always praised her so much. Having known him since he was a baby, she believed she understood him better than anyone. Simultaneously, all three of them thought about him. Nina thought of Kazuaki. Rui thought of Aki-kun. Satori thought of Okabe. Each of them came to the same painful conclusion, wondering if he was not actually into them, and so began a romantic comedy where everyone's self-consciousness had festered into something almost pathological, a rom-com full of misunderstandings. The scene then shifted to Kazuaki sitting at his desk. While looking at him, Nina thought to herself that Hina Nishina, the girl who sat next to him, was the only one who talked to him in class. She reflected that Hina was cheerful, cute, and kind, and that was exactly why she had fallen in love with him, right? Blushing slightly as she watched him, another thought crossed her mind. At least, that was what she had believed until yesterday. Earlier that morning, while walking toward the classroom, she had been thinking that even with a cutie like herself sitting beside him, if a pretty girl like Sano started talking to him, Okabe might get completely flustered because he was not used to dealing with girls. Still, she reassured herself that it was not like she cared. Sliding the classroom door open, she greeted him with a cheerful, "Morning, Okabe." As she sat down, she began to comment that it looked like he was already studying. He simply replied with a calm, "Morning." At that moment, she noticed Kiara standing beside his desk. Startled, she thought to herself that Sano was already there. She greeted her politely, saying good morning to Sano as well. At the same time, she could not help thinking that it was still morning and they were already flirting. With a teasing tone, she remarked that the two of them must have gotten close overnight. Kazuaki reacted in confusion, asking what she meant by close. He explained that it was not like that at all, it felt more like he was simply being observed. Kiara had been staring at him quietly the entire time. Suddenly, she gasped and quickly apologized, asking if she had been bothering him. He replied that she had not been bothering him. He had only been wondering why she kept watching him. Flustered and blushing, she started to answer but stopped midway. Instead, she hurriedly excused herself and ran away, telling him she would see him later. He awkwardly responded that it was okay. Watching the interaction, Nina could not help thinking that Sana was incredibly cute. Then she glanced at Kazuaki and realized that if he kept looking at someone that cute up close, he would surely fall in love with her. Trying to hide her thoughts, she awkwardly spoke up and commented that it was nice that he had made a friend. He jokingly asked if she was his mother. He then added that he was only at school to study, and that it was not like he wanted to make friends or anything. Hearing that, she reminded herself that he had always been like that, studying obsessively. However, he continued by saying that Sano had been hanging around him a lot since yesterday. Then he called her name. She responded with a curious, him. Blushing slightly, he hesitantly asked whether she thought Sano might like him. Hearing that, Nina felt a surge of jealousy. She thought that he was clearly thinking about Sano, even though until yesterday he had been calling her cute and saying things like that. Deep down, she felt that she was the one he should be wondering about. Still, she quickly corrected herself and answered calmly. She said that Sano had been very forward, so anyone might get the wrong idea. He immediately asked if that meant it really was just a misunderstanding. She explained that Sano was hard to figure out, and since she had not actually confessed to him, he was probably just overthinking it. Kazuaki looked relieved and said that had to be the case. Nina forced a small smile and agreed. Gratefully, he thanked her and said he was glad he had asked her. He explained that she was the only person he could talk to about these kinds of things. Those words caught her off guard. The phrase, "the only one," echoed in her mind. Slowly, a smile spread across her face. She repeated the words in her head again, she was the only one. Blushing brightly, she turned away with a small huff before confidently telling him that when he needed someone to talk to, he knew who to come to. She proudly added that he could talk to her about anything, even about which girl he liked. Leaning closer as she said it, both of them suddenly became embarrassed. Kazuaki quickly leaned back and insisted that there was no girl like that. She echoed his statement in surprise, but when she saw his blushing face, she began to feel reassured. It did not look like he was in love with Sano after all. After all, she had known him much longer. Just as she was thinking that, a classmate nearby suddenly commented that it was rare to see Sano and Okabe talking together. Nina glanced over but quickly dismissed it in her mind, telling herself it was not a big deal even if he talked to Sano. Another classmate then turned to her and mentioned that she was close with Okabe, right? Caught off guard, she hesitantly replied that they simply sat next to each other in class. The classmates laughed and said that the two of them always looked like they were having fun talking together. One of them confidently declared that Okabe was definitely in love with her. Hearing that, Nina was stunned. She quickly laughed it off and said there was no way. But internally she felt thrilled. She thought that it had to be true after all, everyone around them seemed to think so. Surely she must be number one in his heart. Later, the scene shifted again. Nina was walking home when she suddenly noticed someone ahead of her. Curious, she realized that it was Kazuaki. She thought it was unusual because she did not normally see him on her way home. She called out to him, but then she noticed another girl standing beside him. Surprised, she wondered who the girl was. Looking closer, she realized that the girl was incredibly pretty. Rui turned toward Kazuaki and asked who she was. Hearing Rui call him Aki-kun, Nina felt even more confused. Kazuaki introduced Nina, explaining that she was Nishina from his class. Nina awkwardly greeted them. He then introduced Rui Kuon, explaining that she was a year below them, his childhood friend, and someone who lived nearby. Rui warmly asked whether Aki-kun was getting along well with everyone in class. Embarrassed, Kazuaki tried to stop her from saying too much. But Rui continued, saying that she worried about him because he had spent all of elementary school with only her. Hearing that, Nina was shocked. Watching how close the two of them stood, she tightened her grip on her bag. Forcing a polite smile, she commented that the two of them seemed to get along very well. Then she turned away and said she would be going that way. As she walked off, she called back that she would see him tomorrow and said goodbye to Rui as well. Kazuaki awkwardly replied. Nina hurried away, her face flushed and her cheeks puffed in frustration. As she walked, she thought about how he seemed close to girls, other than Sano, especially Rui, who was his childhood friend. Compared to that, she had only been in the same class as him for a year. She just happened to talk to him a little more than the others. In the end, she was still only a classmate. With a frustrated pout, she thought that she had believed he had nothing to do with girls. She had thought she was the only one. Annoyed, she silently complained about him, insisting to herself that it was not like she liked him anyway. Suddenly, she heard him call out from behind her. Still caught in her thoughts, she finished the sentence in her mind, insisting again that she did not like him, but she turned around and asked what was wrong. Kazuaki apologized for asking so suddenly, but asked if she wanted to study together on Saturday. He explained that he could have asked her the next day, but since he had run into her now, he thought he would ask. Nina blushed and agreed. However, she pointed out that it really had come out of nowhere, and asked if she would not get in the way of his studies. He replied that if anything, he wanted her to come. Seeing his tense expression, she became even more convinced that he was interested in her. In her mind, she concluded that he was being incredibly forward. He let out a relieved sigh and said he was glad. With a teasing smile, she remarked that it was just like him to invite her to a study session instead of a date. Flustered, he immediately reacted in shock at the word date. Laughing softly, she told him there was no need to get so flustered, and added that she was looking forward to it. The scene then shifted, showing Rui surrounded by several girls who excitedly praised her. They commented that Rui-sama looked cool again today, and that they were huge fans. One of them mentioned hearing that she was a model, while another added that she had been the ace of the volleyball club in middle school. They continued admiring her, saying she was incredibly cool. Hearing this, Rui calmly thought to herself that they were right, she was cool. As she looked ahead, another thought crossed her mind. That was exactly why. At that moment, one of the girls excitedly said that Rui's name itself sounded cool. Rui reacted with slight confusion. Her mind suddenly drifted into a memory. In the flashback, a younger Rui had asked whether having a cool name was a good thing. Kazuaki had replied enthusiastically that it was. Smiling, he explained that he liked cool things. Hearing that back then, Rui had thought to herself that if he liked cool things, then he must like her too. Ever since that day, she had believed that Aki-kun liked her. Back in the present, she was blushing slightly as she walked when she noticed him ahead, yawning as he walked. She called out to him. With a smile, she greeted him, "Good morning." He returned the greeting. Nearby, girls immediately reacted in surprise, wondering who he was and asking whether he was a second year. They also wondered how the two of them knew each other. Rui turned toward them and casually explained that he was her childhood friend. The girls responded warmly, saying that was nice. Internally, Rui thought that was true at least for now. Looking toward him again, she heard him remark that she was as impressive as always. She continued walking with the girls, but inside her mind, she imagined what he must be thinking. She believed that he must be surprised after not seeing his childhood friend for so long, especially now that she was even cooler and more popular than before. But she reassured herself that he had no reason to feel anxious. After all, the two of them shared a special bond as childhood friends, and she believed they were destined to end up together. Just then, she turned her head and saw Kiara greeting him. He greeted her back. Rui's expression turned blank as she thought to herself that it was happening again today. Looking at Kiara, she recognized her as the same girl from before. With a tense expression, she remembered that the two of them had met when walking home earlier. She began wondering who that girl really was and what she meant to Aki-kun. And it was not only her. Rui also remembered the other girl from yesterday on the way home. He had said they were classmates, but Rui had noticed something different. The image of Nina's face briefly appeared in her mind. One of the girls beside Rui called her name, bringing her back to the present. Rui quietly concluded that the look on that girl's face had been the expression of someone in love. Determined, she thought that she needed to make sure. She called out to him. Suddenly, she stepped forward and slammed her hand against the wall behind him, pinning him between her arms. Trying to maintain her composure, she told herself to act cool. Then she asked him who that girl from earlier was. Keeping him between her hands, she continued questioning him, asking him to tell her. Deep inside, she wondered if she was still his number one. Kazuaki nervously explained that the girl was simply his classmate. Rui repeated the phrase, asking if she was really just a classmate. He confirmed that she was. Rui stared at him carefully, silently questioning whether that was really true. At that moment, he suddenly pointed out that she was standing too close. Startled, Rui immediately stepped back. Blushing in embarrassment, she began panicking internally, wondering if she had gone too far. She worried that she might have looked desperate and ended up appearing lame. As she anxiously wondered what to do, Kazuaki suddenly commented that she was cool. Confused, she asked what he meant. Blushing slightly, he explained that it was pretty amazing that she could confidently push someone against a wall like that. He said most people could not do something like that, but she could because of her looks. To him, it looked really cool. Hearing that word again, Rui repeated it in her mind. Blushing, she interpreted it as confirmation that he liked her. Smiling proudly, she convinced herself that things were the same as back then and that he still liked her. With that confidence, she commented that it seemed like he was fitting in well in his class and even getting close with his classmates. He did not respond. Seeing that, Rui thought to herself that he seemed to have more girls around him now. She admitted that it was not strange since he was in high school, but still, with a proud expression, she reassured herself that it was not a problem. After all, she believed she was the coolest one, and Aki-kun liked cool girls. She apologized for stopping him and said she would be going now. Just as she turned to leave, he suddenly called out to her and asked her to wait. She looked back in confusion. He explained that he was planning to hold a study session at his place and asked if she would like to come. For a moment she remained silent, repeating his words in her mind. Then she happily accepted, saying she would love to come and that they had not spent time together like that since elementary school. Kazuaki quickly clarified that it would really be for studying. Rui simply smiled to herself. In her mind, she felt reassured that even if he became close with other girls, his childhood friend would still be number one. The scene then shifted again. Kiara was speaking to Kazuaki, asking whether he had invited her to the study session. He confirmed that he had done exactly what she had told him to do. He explained that he had invited Nishina and the others as well. Kiara blushed slightly. He then asked whether she was truly okay with it, since she did not know Rui. With a bright and happy expression, she thanked him. Kazuaki admitted that even though it was only for a study session, it had not been easy inviting those girls over to his house. Kiara casually replied that he should have simply invited them himself. Confused, he asked why she had made him do it instead. She froze for a moment. Then, blushing, she explained that it was because it was him Kazu-kun. There would have been no point if she had done it herself. Kazuaki was left wondering what that even meant. Even so, he realized that whenever Sano asked him to do something, he somehow could not refuse. Then another thought occurred to him. He realized that he had forgotten to tell the others that inviting them had actually been Sano's idea. Still, he assumed it would probably be fine. At that moment, none of them knew that something far bigger was about to begin. None of them realized that a battle was about to take place. The scene then shifted to Nina walking, while recalling what Kazuaki had told her earlier. He had explained that they would be studying at his place and that they could meet up at the station. Thinking about it now, she realized it would be their first time meeting outside of school, and it would be at his house. Blushing, she could not help thinking that it was a little pervy. She had not expected something like that from Okabe. Still, she reassured herself that she was not some easy girl, so there was no way anything would happen. As she walked out of the station, another thought crossed her mind. Even so, she had still decided to wear a cute, matching pair of underwear. Clenching her fist in embarrassment, she quickly insisted to herself that there was no way she was showing it to him. It was only just in case. At that moment, Kazuaki approached her and apologized for keeping her waiting. She began to greet him, but her voice trailed off when she noticed that Kiara was standing beside him. Seeing Kiara smiling next to him, Nina immediately thought that she had known this would happen. Of course, Sano would show up too. There was no way Okabe would try to hang out alone with her. She had known that all along. Still, he could have at least told her who he had invited. Then again, she admitted that it was partly her fault for not asking. Blushing again, She realized that if she asked why it was not just the two of them, it would make it seem like she had been hoping for that. Suddenly, Kiara commented that Nina's outfit looked very cute. Startled, Nina asked what she meant. Kiara walked closer and repeated that Nina's outfit was cute. Surprised that Sana was complimenting her, Nina quickly returned the compliment, telling her that she looked very cute too. At the same time, Nina quietly wondered why Okabe was still wearing his school uniform. Kiara then commented that going to a boy's house was a bit nerve-wracking, right? Flustered, Nina quickly replied that she was used to it. However, in her mind, she immediately admitted that it was a complete lie. It was actually her first time. Kiara responded that if that was true, it was impressive. Nina internally panicked, thinking that it was not true at all and not impressive either. She wondered why she had lied. Just then, Kazuaki announced that they had arrived. Kiara stepped inside and politely thanked him for having them. As Nina entered the house, she thought to herself that this was Okabe's home. But then she suddenly noticed someone else sitting there. Surprised, she realized that there was another girl. Rui greeted Kazuaki, complaining that he had taken long enough. She said he had left her there alone while he went to pick up the other girls and called him mean for doing that. Kazuaki awkwardly apologized. Rui continued complaining, saying she had been extremely lonely waiting by herself. In her thoughts, Rui recalled arriving earlier and saying that it had been a long time since she had been in his room and that it looked exactly the same as before. At that moment, she had believed it would be just the two of them. However, Kazuaki had immediately told her that he was going to pick up the other two. Back in the present, Rui complained that she had been forced to wait for over 10 minutes and asked if he knew how that felt. Kazuaki replied that since she had been there many times before, he thought she would be fine. Hearing that, Nina was shocked that Rui had already been there many times. Rui casually explained that it was from when they were little because they were childhood friends. Blushing slightly, Rui thought to herself that since they had known each other since childhood, he often ended up spoiling her. She felt that he could not help it. Nina silently repeated the words, "back when they were little," in her mind. Soon, everyone sat down together. Kazuaki then suggested that they get started. The scene showed the group studying, though Nina quietly thought that the atmosphere felt extremely awkward. At that moment, Kiara opened her bag and said that she had brought some snacks for everyone. She asked which ones they wanted. Kazuaki thanked her. Nina noticed that Kiara had brought a lot of snacks. However, Kazuaki apologized and said that he wanted to focus on studying, so the three of them could go ahead and enjoy the snacks themselves. Nina wondered what was wrong with him. Then Kiara calmly suggested that in that case, she could feed the snacks to him. Both Rui and Nina stared at her in shock. Kazuaki blushed and reacted in confusion. Seeing his reaction, both Rui and Nina were stunned. They could not understand why he looked so happy while blushing so much. At the same time, both girls began thinking the same painful thought, so he had not been interested in them after all. Suddenly, Rui spoke up and asked if she could do it too. In her mind, she decided that she would put a stop to this. Kiara and Nina both looked at her in surprise. Meanwhile, Nina thought that she did not want to sit there watching Okabe get sandwiched between two beautiful girls. Standing up suddenly, she insisted to herself that it was not because she liked him or anything. Then she said that since Okabe had already said he did not want any snacks, they should give them to her instead. Kazuaki agreed. Kiara reacted in surprise but then accepted the idea. She began feeding the snacks to Nina and Rui instead, smiling as she asked if they were good. Both girls ate them. Rui commented that food tasted surprisingly good when someone else fed it to you, though she quietly admitted to herself that she had wanted to be the one feeding him. At the same time, she worried that she might look like a complete glutton. Meanwhile, Kazuaki felt relieved, thinking that at least things would not become awkward now. Suddenly, his eraser fell to the ground. Thinking that this was probably for the best, he leaned down to pick it up and returned to his normal position. At that moment, Kiara suddenly spoke. Leaning close to Nina's ear, she quietly told her that her underwear was cute too. Nina immediately grabbed her clothes and blushed intensely, asking if Kiara had seen them. Kazuaki also blushed deeply and quickly apologized, explaining that he had not meant to look, but had accidentally seen them. Nina remained red-faced, but eventually said that since it had been an accident, she would forgive him. However, inside, she thought that it was a good thing she had worn a cute pair today before immediately scolding herself, because there was nothing good about it at all. Just then, the door suddenly opened. Satori stood there with a blank expression and calmly said that what she was seeing looked like immoral relations. The scene then shifted to a group of college students chatting excitedly, with one of them suggesting going to karaoke afterward. Several others eagerly agreed, expressing their enthusiasm. The focus then moved to a classroom, where Satori was sitting at her desk, observing the group. In her thoughts, she judged them as a flashy group of outgoing college students and immediately assumed that something inappropriate was about to happen. She harshly criticized them internally, thinking they were wasting money and behaving shamelessly, accusing them of collective public indecency. However, she suddenly realized that she herself was about to meet a boy alone in his room, a high school boy who was supposedly head over heels for her. As she walked, she imagined the situation, thinking that since they would be alone in his room, something was bound to happen. She mischievously considered teasing him, referring to herself as a naughty older cousin planning to toy with a young adolescent boy. The scene then shifted to an apartment. Satori arrived and began to greet Kazuaki, but froze when she saw him already sitting and studying with Rui, Hina, and Kiara present. With a blank expression, she immediately declared that this looked like immoral relations. Kazuaki calmly introduced her as his cousin, Satori Inoue, and explained that she was his tutor. He then introduced the others Nishina and Sano as his classmates, and Rui as his childhood friend. Satori stood there in shock as he apologized for asking her to come earlier than usual, explaining that he wanted her to help everyone with their homework. Internally, she was stunned, thinking that she had come to help him study, not to witness his so-called harem. As she looked at the three girls, she refused internally to take part in what she saw as immoral relations. Meanwhile, all three girls politely thanked her for helping them. Overwhelmed by their brightness, she awkwardly replied that it was no problem. She sat down beside Kazuaki, still unable to process the situation and wondering why this was happening. Rui commented that she had not known he had a college student helping him with his studies, speaking with a flat expression. Hina added that Satori was very beautiful and seemed kind, also noting her figure, which only made Satori more uncomfortable. Trying to regain composure, Satori thanked them and said they should begin. However, internally, she spiraled into confusion. She thought that Kazuaki had turned into a delinquent. Ever since he was a child, he had always admired her, calling her Satori-ni and looking at her with respect. She had believed that he was deeply in love with her. She recalled congratulating him for passing his exams and even offering him a reward, believing it would help him grow up. Now, seeing him surrounded by girls, she could not understand what had happened. She had assumed he was a loner like her, but now she questioned whether he had already been involved with one of them. She wondered if the message he had received earlier had been from one of these girls, desperately trying to figure out which one. Overwhelmed, she slammed her head onto the table. Kazuaki called out to her in concern. Still spiraling, she irrationally jumped to the conclusion that they must have all been involved together, blushing intensely at the thought, and even wishing to be included. She slammed her head again. Kazuaki called out to her once more. Kiara, confused but polite, remarked that Satori was an unusual person and asked for help with a problem she did not understand. Satori looked at her and wondered which of the girls it was. She then questioned whether they were even intelligent. She recalled Kazuaki once saying that a girl should be both smart and cute, not just smart. Realizing this, she broke down in tears, thinking that he was not interested in her after all. Kazuaki noticed and asked if she was crying. Quickly composing herself, she blamed it on her contact lenses being out of place and wiped her tears. Kiara then asked for help, admitting she did not understand anything. Satori was stunned. Rui added that she also needed help. Nina explained that she had brought her workbooks but was unsure where to start since classes had only just begun. Rui agreed. Satori remained silent for a moment, then suddenly slammed her hand onto the books. She quickly reviewed them one by one, handing them back with a stern expression. She instructed them to start by completing one page and to skip anything they did not understand, asking her about it later. All three agreed. Internally, Satori was still confused, questioning why Kazuaki had brought such girls home. She wondered why they all seemed so lacking academically, especially since she believed he liked intelligent girls. However, Kazuaki sincerely thanked her, explaining that it was his first time organizing a study session and that he had not known what to do. He expressed how glad he was that she had come to help. Rui asked if it was really his first time. Kiara realized that this was why he had not explained anything beforehand. Kazuaki apologized. Satori remained silent for a moment. Then, in her thoughts, she admitted that she could never be disappointed in him. Blushing slightly, she reassured herself that Kazuaki still liked studying and that he liked her. She declared that they would begin properly and firmly stated that no one would be allowed to leave until they understood everything. Internally, she reassured herself that he was still inexperienced, and not some kind of womanizer, and that she was the only one who truly understood him. Hearing her strict declaration, Nina, Rui, and Kiara reacted with nervous cries. The scene then shifted to the classroom. Hina commented that Satori had been very good at teaching and that she had made everything easy to understand. Kazuaki agreed, saying that he knew and that he would tell her she had said that. Kiara then suggested that they should hold another study meeting sometime. They were sitting in the classroom when Nina jokingly suggested that maybe they could hold the next session at her place, quickly adding that she was only kidding. Kazuaki responded by asking if she was sure. At that moment, Kiara was standing beside him. Nina began thinking that ever since Sano had first spoken to Okabe, things had changed. The next day, she saw him with Kiara again, and even after that, it continued. Sitting at her desk, Nina thought that Kiara had been glued to him wherever he went. She reflected that she had believed she was the only one who talked to Okabe at school. Looking over again, she saw Kiara standing beside him. Nina thought that ever since the study meeting, it felt like they had gotten closer. Nina also thought that she had friends and people she could talk to, but she reflected that those little conversations they had between classes were something she had enjoyed. The scene then shifted to the hallway. Nina was walking with her friends, who were laughing and repeating how hilarious something was. As she walked with them, Nina wondered if she had been the only one who felt that way. She admitted that Sano was a good person and that it was not like she hated her. At that moment, she saw Kazuaki and started to call out to him, but her voice cut off midway. Before she could finish, Kiara called out to him, addressing him as Kazukan. He flinched. Nina's friends reacted in shock, pointing out that Kiara was using his first name. They wondered if the two of them had started dating. Nina froze. As her friends gasped, she began trembling. She thought that he had not been interested in her after all. Watching Kiara hold his arm as they walked, she admitted that she wanted to be alone with him too. She walked past them and called out to him, asking if he had time after their next class. He responded with confusion. The bell rang. Nina stood up, grabbed his hand, and pulled him along as they ran out of the classroom. She shut the door behind them with force and brought him into an empty classroom. Confused, Kazuaki asked what was wrong. With a tense expression, Nina explained that it was an empty classroom where she sometimes ate lunch and that it was a great spot she would recommend. Kazuaki acknowledged it. Meanwhile, Nina realized that she had dragged him there in a rush and had not planned what she was going to say. Closing her eyes, she thought that if she just joked around like she always did, instead, she suddenly asked whether he and Sano had started dating, adding that she would not tell anyone. Kazuaki replied that they had indeed started dating the day before. Nina was stunned and shocked. She thought about what he had just said, and as she blushed, she felt a strong throbbing in her chest, wondering what that feeling was. At that moment, Kiara's voice came from behind the door as she called out to him and knocked. Kazuaki reacted in surprise. Nina's expression tightened as she realized Sano was there. She thought that it had finally been just the two of them again. Without thinking, she pulled his hand and dragged him into a nearby closet. Kiara opened the classroom door and, seeing no one inside, wondered if she had imagined it. She walked past the closet. Inside, Nina and Kazuaki were hiding, pressed tightly against each other. Nina, blushing intensely, realized that she had hidden without thinking and had dragged him in with her. She became aware that her chest was pressed against his body. Clenching her fist, she noticed how close his face was and that she could feel his breath. Her chest was pressed against him, and she grew even more flustered. She thought that she had wanted to be alone with him, but she had not expected things to go this far. She could tell that his heart was beating rapidly. After Kiara left, Nina stepped out of the closet, still blushing heavily. Kazuaki hesitated and called out uncertainly. Nina walked away. He called her name again with a confused expression and asked if she was okay. She stopped, still blushing, and replied that she was fine. Clenching her fist, she apologized and explained that they had not talked much lately, so she had wanted to have a conversation. She added that she had ended up dragging him in there. Turning back to him, she jokingly asked if he had gotten nervous. She then saw that he was blushing as well. The scene shifted again. Kiara stood in front of their desks and asked whether something had happened between the two of them. Both Kazuaki and Nina, sitting at their desks and blushing heavily, denied it, insisting that nothing had happened at all. The scene then shifts to a group of students clearing the streets. One girl remarked that it was a field trip where they interacted with locals while cleaning up trash, while another complained that it was such a drag. Hina agreed with her, saying she felt the same. The first girl then suggested they should finish quickly so they could leave, and the second girl agreed as the two of them walked away. Hina then turned and noticed Kazuaki, thinking to herself in surprise. Blushing, she realized that ever since that day, she had been unable to look him in the eyes, and she quickly ran off. Kazuaki saw her reaction and blushed as well. At that moment, Kiara approached and asked if she could do the activity with him. He hesitated briefly but agreed. He then began picking up trash at a fast pace. Kiara watched in amazement and praised him, saying he was good at it. He explained that he handled most of the cleaning at home, so his body naturally went on autopilot. Kiara responded that she had noticed his room was very clean. He then apologized for asking again but questioned why she had started talking to him in the first place. After a brief pause, he added that there were people like Hina who were much easier to talk to, even now. Kiara hesitated before saying that she wanted him to be her first. Hearing this, he blushed in shock, misinterpreting her words. She clarified that she meant the first person she exchanged contact information with, and the first person she would hold a study session with. Realizing his misunderstanding, he awkwardly acknowledged it. She then explained that she already knew he was a kind and good person, which was why she wanted to get to know him better. Blushing, he wondered if that meant she had liked him from before. However, he immediately shook his head and stopped himself, thinking he was overthinking again. He reasoned that Kiara simply spoke in a suggestive way, just like the others. Hina teased him, and Rui had always acted cool toward everyone. Kiara then said that from now on, they should keep experiencing many firsts together. Kazuaki, still confused, wondered what she was really after and whether she was intentionally trying to make him misunderstand or simply enjoying watching him get flustered. Flustered, he abruptly pointed out that there was trash nearby and moved slightly away. Kiara called out to him and then asked why he was always studying. He replied that students were supposed to study. She explained that she was just wondering if he had a specific goal, such as becoming a doctor. He responded that he did not have any grand ambitions. Internally, he reflected that he simply wanted to attend a good national university and allow his mother to rest after everything she had done for him. As he walked, he continued thinking that he only wanted a peaceful and stable life. However, he remembered how he had failed his exam and how he remained overly self-conscious, constantly losing his composure. He concluded that he needed to do something about his weak mindset. While walking, he picked up a can. Kiara then called out to him again as they unknowingly wandered deeper into a forested area. She looked around and wondered where they were. Confused, he looked ahead and noticed warning signs about wild boars and bears. Fear immediately set in. Kiara asked if they were lost. With a tense expression, he turned to her and insisted that everything was fine. She calmly accepted his reassurance. Trying to stay composed, he told her to remain calm. He then began giving instructions, saying that if they encountered a bear, she should not turn her back, and if they saw a wild boar, they should avoid eye contact and slowly retreat. He even declared that he would use himself as bait if necessary, awkwardly admitting that she must be scared, but assuring her not to worry. He promised that he would keep her safe. Hearing this, she smiled softly and agreed, blushing. As they continued walking, he thought about how they had gotten lost during a simple cleanup activity and blamed himself for being so distracted that he had caused trouble for her as well. He warned her to watch her step and pointed out more trash nearby, reasoning that if there was trash in the area, they could not be too far from where they had started. He concluded that they were likely in the mountains behind the school. At that moment, Kiara gently extended her hand and held his. He froze in surprise as he looked at her. Smiling, she explained that it was so they would not get separated and suggested that they hold hands. Blushing, he stood there with her, unable to respond. Suddenly, Hina's voice called out from behind the bushes, announcing that they had finally been found and that it was time to assemble. Both Kazuaki and Kiara turned toward her. Hina explained that she had noticed they were missing and had come to look for them. She informed them that they were indeed in the mountains behind the school and that there was no need to clean up there. Kazuaki remarked that it was just as he had thought. However, Hina then noticed that they were holding hands. With a tense expression, she questioned why their hands were together. Startled, Kazuaki quickly pulled his hand away, panicking as he tried to explain while blushing. Kiara, however, simply smiled and commented that it was another first for them. Hearing this, Hina reacted in shock before narrowing her eyes slightly and remarking that Kazuaki was craftier than she had thought. Flustered, He immediately denied it and insisted that it had been Kiara's idea. Hina responded with a drawn-out, questioning tone, clearly unconvinced. Hina then exclaimed that they had been so focused on picking up trash that they ended up getting lost, questioning how they could get lost so close to the school and calling it hilarious. Kazuaki admitted that he had honestly thought they were done for. Kiara laughed at his comment. Hina then remarked that it was a good thing they had made it back and suggested they return to class. Kazuaki agreed. As they began walking, Hina watched Kazuaki and Kiara from behind and noticed their earlier interaction. She thought to herself that they had been holding hands and internally protested that he should not be holding another girl's hand in front of the one he supposedly liked. She reflected that she had believed she was the one he was into, though she admitted she had no proof. Still, she reasoned that after everything that had happened, the chances of him not falling for her should be low, especially since his heart had been pounding as well. Suddenly, snapping out of her thoughts, she urged them to hurry. Kazuaki agreed, but at that moment Kiara suddenly ran ahead. Surprised, he reacted in confusion, while Hina commented on how fast Kiara was. As Hina continued running, she became aware of her own heartbeat. Memories of Kazuaki and Kiara together resurfaced in her mind. Overwhelmed, she closed her eyes and collapsed to the ground. Kazuaki quickly turned back and asked if she was okay. She forced out an awkward laugh, insisting it was nothing, but her thoughts continued to spiral. She recalled the image of Kazuaki and Kiara holding hands and questioned whether Kazuaki liked her. She denied it, then reconsidered, thinking of his moments with Kiara, then Rui, and again the image of him holding Kiara's hand. Each time, she rejected the thought, yet her emotions grew more intense. She internally pleaded for him to look only at her, admitting that she had wanted to hold his hand. At that moment, he extended his hand toward her. As she looked at it, she thought about wanting to hold it too. He asked gently if she could stand. Her heart skipped a beat. Blushing, she smiled and became convinced that he truly did like her. As her heart pounded, she hesitated for a moment before realizing that the feeling she was hearing was her own heartbeat and that she was the one who liked him. She finally reached out and held his hand. The scene then shifts to the school building. A girl excitedly told Rui that Aki-kun had just grabbed Nishina-senpai's hand. Rui, confused, asked what she meant. The girl reminded her that Aki-kun was the childhood friend she had mentioned and pointed out the window, saying they were over there. Rui complained that they were too far away to see clearly and jokingly asked if the girl was some kind of wild animal to be able to see from such a distance. However, when she looked more closely and confirmed it herself, her expression darkened with irritation. The scene then shifts to nighttime. Kazuaki was at home, studying, but he thought to himself that a lot had happened that day and that he had probably acted like a complete creep. With a gloomy expression, he admitted internally that he could not focus on his studies. He stood up and said he was going to use the restroom before stepping outside. Satori noticed his behavior and became curious. She then saw his phone and noticed a new message. It was from Kiara, saying that she had been very nervous that day. Satori was stunned. With tears forming in her eyes, she jumped to a shocking conclusion, wondering if they had finally done it. The scene then shifts to Kiara's house. A voice called out, announcing that they had returned home and commenting that it had been a while since they last came back. Kiara was seen on her phone. The same person then reacted with surprise, commenting that it was a rare sight to see Kiara using her phone. Noticing further, she exclaimed in disbelief that Kiara was actually messaging someone. Upon seeing the name, she recognized it as Okabe and connected it to Kazuaki, expressing nostalgic surprise. Kiara calmly responded, welcoming her home and addressing her as her older sister. The scene ends with a picture showing Kiara's sister together with Kazuaki and Satori, hinting at their past connection. The scene then shifts to the school as the sun rises. Rui is shown bathing, recalling the moment when Kazuaki held Hina's hand. She turns off the shower, her face turning completely emotionless. The scene changes to her home, where her mother notices that she is leaving early. Rui casually responds that she is heading out, and her mother tells her to take care. Shortly after, Rui is seen standing near the elevator when she notices Kazuaki stepping out. She greets him cheerfully, calling out, "Good morning, Aki-kun," and remarks with a smile that it is quite a coincidence. He greets her back. She then asks if he would like to walk to school together, and he agrees. As they walk, Rui mentions that during middle school she always had morning practice, so they rarely saw each other, and that it had been a while since they last walked to school together. Kazuaki, with a slightly tense expression, asks if she is not joining any clubs in high school, noting that she used to be the ace player. Rui pauses before teasingly replying that joining a club would mean not being able to see him, and that she would not want him to get lonely before quickly adding that she is just kidding. Kazuaki internally notes that she always says cool things like that. Rui then recalls the past, saying it brings back memories of when they used to hold hands every day on the way to school during elementary school. Kazuaki agrees. She continues, but suddenly a memory interrupts. Two boys had once noticed them and loudly pointed out that he was holding hands with a girl. Embarrassed, Rui had boldly asked if he wanted to hold hands with her. When he hesitated and apologized, she had grabbed his hand anyway, declaring that her hand was reserved just for Aki-kun, and then led him away. Kazuaki had thought at the time that she was incredibly cool. Returning to the present, Rui asks if he remembers that moment. He confirms that he does. She maintains a neutral expression for a moment before stopping and bringing up what she saw the previous day, that he and Hina had been holding hands. Kazuaki reacts with surprise and quickly explains that he was only helping her and did not intend to hold her hand. However, internally, he remembers that he had also held hands with Kiara. Before he can say more, Rui reaches out, takes his hand, and softly tells him that her hand is still reserved just for him. Leaning closer, she asks him to hold hands with her as well. She then firmly takes his hand, thinking to herself that she finally did it. As they continue walking hand in hand, Rui wonders if what she said sounded cool, and whether his heart skipped a beat. She resolves that she will not let him hold hands with anyone else, and that she needs to remind him of all the days he used to hold her hand, that she is the one he likes, just like back then. However, her thoughts begin to waver. She slowly loosens her grip and becomes aware of the difference in their hands. Looking at his hand, she is startled to realize how much it has changed. Back then, her hand used to be bigger than his, and his hand had been soft. Now, his hand feels large and warm. Meanwhile, Kazuaki blushes, wondering if she is rubbing his hand. Rui continues to think about how different it feels now, how big and warm her hand is, almost as if he were being embraced. Blushing, she realizes that this is what a boy's hand feels like. Flustered, she suddenly lets go and stammers that maybe that is enough for today. Kazuaki, also blushing, agrees. Still embarrassed, Rui quickly runs ahead, saying she is going to buy something to drink and telling him to go on ahead. As she runs, she realizes that things are no longer the same as they were back then. She mutters that even though she took a shower that morning, she feels sweaty again. Meanwhile, Kazuaki remains standing there, watching her leave. He wonders if she ran away from him because she got uncomfortable, even worrying that his hands might have been sweatier than before. The scene then shifts to Satori, who notices that Kazuaki has been receiving a lot of messages on his phone lately. She also recalls that he had brought 3 girls into his room, which leads her to think that her Kazuaki might be getting targeted by them. As she watches him studying while standing beside him, her thoughts spiral, wondering if he has already gotten involved with one of them or if he might even be dating one of them. Frustrated, she thinks that this is not the time to be helping him study and admits that she cannot stop having such thoughts. Blushing, she briefly considers taking a different approach and impulsively hugs him, suggesting that she could teach him something else. However, she immediately stops herself, thinking that she should not do that, and instead decides to ask him directly. Hesitantly, she asks how things have been for him lately. Confused, he asks what she means, while she internally cringes, thinking she sounds like an old man. She clarifies, asking about things other than school and studying, referring to his earlier concern about dealing with worldly desires. He acknowledges her question but falls silent. Seeing this, she becomes tense and assumes that something must have happened. She then directly asks if he has gotten a girlfriend and leans in, assuring him that he can tell her. Kazuaki reacts with surprise and blushes, while she immediately regrets how it sounded, thinking that instead of coming across as a teasing older cousin, she sounded more like a creepy uncle. Flustered, he firmly denies having a girlfriend and states that he has no intention of getting one, explaining that he wants to focus on his studies. Hearing this, she feels relieved, but her thoughts quickly spiral again as she wonders if that might mean something more ambiguous about his relationships. He then admits that she saw right through him and that his mind has been a mess lately. He explains that although he wants to focus on his studies, he cannot continue like this and is unsure what to do. Hearing this, Satori begins to understand his situation. She then suggests that they should blow off some steam together. For a brief moment, She imagines taking a bold and inappropriate approach, which startles Kazuaki, but she quickly snaps back to reality and dismisses the thought, calling it ridiculous. He agrees, and she regains her composure. Blushing, she reflects that he is genuinely stressed, and that this is the moment she needs to show him that he can rely on her. She then advises him that he does not need to force himself to suppress all his urges, explaining that there are some things beyond one's control. She suggests that when he feels that way, it is important to relieve stress, and that it might be good for him to go ADOs and have some fun occasionally. Internally, she adds that she would like to be the one to go with him. He acknowledges her advice. She hesitates, trying to suggest that she could accompany him, but struggles to say it out loud. In her thoughts, she becomes determined, telling herself to forget about the other girls and that she would even pay for everything, essentially building up the courage to ask him out. However, flustered by her own feelings and the fact that she has known him since he was a baby, she becomes embarrassed and cannot say it properly. Kazuaki simply thanks her and says that he will try following her advice. She is momentarily shocked but then becomes hopeful, thinking he might invite her. However, he simply returns to studying, leaving her confused. The scene then shifts to the classroom. Kiara approaches Kazuaki at his desk and cheerfully suggests that they go somewhere together. She explains that her sister had some spare tickets and gave them to her, telling her to go with a friend. Hearing this, Hina reacts with visible tension. Kazuaki thinks that under normal circumstances, he would decline, but he recalls Satori's advice about needing to blow off some steam. Kiara adds that he does not have to go if he does not want to. After a brief moment, he agrees to go. Kiara becomes visibly happy, while Hina remains tense and shocked. Kiara excitedly celebrates and then casually mentions that she actually has 4 tickets. This surprises both Kazuaki and Hina, and Kazuaki responds by asking if she has anyone else in mind. The scene then shifts to Hina, reflecting on the night of the field trip, recalling the moment when Kazuaki helped her stand up. She is shown sitting on her sofa, wondering if she is in love with him. As she lies back, blushing, she feels her chest tightening and questions why this is happening. She reasons that he is not particularly handsome, that all he does is study, and that he does not even have many friends. Yet she admits that he is kind and remembers that he told her she was cute, believing that he said it only to her. Blushing even more, she begins to convince herself that he must like her. At that moment, her younger sister, Rina, suddenly asks if she has gotten a boyfriend. Surprised, Hina reacts, questioning why she would ask that. Rina reminds her of what she had said before, leading into a flashback where Hina had confidently declared that the boy sitting next to her was totally in love with her and that he would confess any day. She had even wondered aloud what she should do about it. Back in the present, Rina points out that she said that last spring. Hina, embarrassed, realizes how carried away she had been. Rina then casually mentions that she herself has a boyfriend. Hina initially responds calmly, but then reacts in shock, congratulating her while realizing that her 6th-grade younger sister has already surpassed her. Rina sits beside her and asks about her situation. Hina smiles outwardly but internally panics, thinking that not only has he not confessed, but other pretty girls are about to take him away from her, leaving her overwhelmed with jealousy. However, seeing her sister looking at her innocently, she decides she cannot admit any of that and resolves to maintain her pride as the older sister. Trying to save face, she claims that she is already visiting his place. Rina reacts in shock and excitement. Internally, Hina reassures herself that it is not technically a lie. Rina then eagerly asks if they have already held hands, and Hina confidently answers yes, again justifying to herself that it is still technically true. Rina excitedly suggests going on a double date, which makes Hina comment that she is acting far too grown up. However, deep down, Hina admits that she wants to go on a date with him, just the 2 of them. She then asks what kind of dates Rina goes on. Rina explains that she goes to places like the shopping mall and the arcade, though she casually mentions that the arcade was with her ex. Surprised, Hina questions this, only for Rina to clarify that she has only walked home from school with her current boyfriend. Shocked, Hina realizes that her sister has already had previous relationships and cannot believe it. Rina continues listing her past relationships, mentioning boys from different classes, and even a middle schooler and a friend's older brother. Hina grows increasingly tense as she listens. Rina then adds that another boy from her class has confessed to her, and she is unsure what to do. At this, Hina finally bursts out, shouting that she has not even dated anyone yet. Internally, she scolds her sister for taking relationships too lightly. Startled, Rina questions her reaction. Hina quickly tries to cover it up by saying it was just a joke and advises that one should only date someone they truly love, insisting there should not be anyone else involved. She then realizes she accidentally said her true feelings out loud and adds that her sister is starting to worry her. Rina responds that when you fall in love, you cannot hold yourself back, and that you should start dating as soon as you realize your feelings, or time will pass by. Hina imagines Kazuaki as she listens. Rina continues, warning that the other person's feelings might change. Hina immediately recalls Kazuaki with Kiara. Rina then continued by adding that someone else might swoop in and take the person you like. Hearing this, Hina realized internally that she had no way to refute that point. Rina then casually adds that if things do not work out, one can simply break up. Hina remarks that her younger sister is far too composed for her age, but admits internally that she is right about one thing: she needs to make a move before someone else does. Determined, she decides that she will start by asking him out on a date. The scene then shifts to the classroom, where Kiara cheerfully suggests to Kazuaki that they go somewhere together. Hina reacts with shock. Kiara then asks if he has anyone else in mind, which makes Hina tense as she fixates on her. Kazuaki asks Kiara if there is anyone she would like to invite. Kiara hesitates slightly. Internally, Hina urges herself to act. Kiara then turns to Hina and invites her to join them. Surprised, Hina reacts emotionally, briefly slipping into a nickname before correcting herself. She quickly agrees, saying she overheard their conversation and that it sounded fun. Kiara accepts her response and says that it is settled, then mentions that they still need one more person and wonders who they should ask as she walks away. Kazuaki then looks at Hina and asks if she is sure about this. She confidently responds that it sounds like fun. Internally, she encourages herself, deciding that she will go through with her plan. She then adds that while it will be the four of them this time, she would also like to go somewhere with just the two of them. Kazuaki reacts with a tense expression and blushes in response. Hina, smiling, feels triumphant and begins excitedly imagining possible date ideas, such as going to an aquarium, a zoo, or watching a movie. Meanwhile, Kazuaki, still blushing, misunderstands her words and assumes she is referring to wanting to go somewhere alone with Kiara. He wonders when the two of them became so close and reflects that he almost got the wrong idea again. The scene then shifts to Satori getting dressed. As she looks at herself, she wonders if her outfit looks strange, noting that she has not worn a skirt since high school. She questions whether it might be a bit too revealing but concludes that, for today, she needs to show Kazuaki the charm of an adult woman at an amusement park. The scene changes to the meeting point, where Kazuaki and Hina are already waiting. Hina comments that it is nice to have a reliable adult with them. Hearing this, Satori's expression turns slightly gloomy, as she worries that she might just be there to look after them like children. Hina then asks Kazuaki if he invited Satori as well. He reacts in mild exasperation, pointing out that it is all girls again and jokingly questioning what this is supposed to be. Hina asks if he does not have any male friends. He replies that he does, but explains that this outing is his way of thanking them and apologizing for the previous study session. Internally, he is unsure if it truly counts. Hina says she understands and assumes that is why he invited Satori, reassuring herself that Satori does not count as a romantic rival, which means everything is fine. Just then, she notices the others arriving and calls out to Kiara and Rui. Rui observes that it looks like everyone has arrived, and Kiara suggests that they should get going. However, Hina suddenly remembers something and leans toward Kazuaki, reminding him that he only had 4 tickets. She points out that one of them would be left out and asks what he plans to do. Kazuaki calmly searches his bag and takes out another ticket, explaining that he bought a one-day pass for himself because he felt bad using one of the shared tickets. Kiara notices this, and Rui internally admires how thoughtful it is. Satori, however, is stunned and begins to panic internally, thinking that, as the adult, she should have been the one paying. At the same time, she realizes that this was Kazuaki's way of expressing gratitude and apologizing, and that she had not even known he only had 4 tickets. When Kazuaki asks what she is doing, she snaps out of her thoughts and tells herself that this is only the beginning. Hina excitedly announces that they are going in, and the group heads inside. As they enter, Satori resolves to show her adult side from that point onward. Hina reacts with excitement, while Rui comments that it has been a long time since she last visited an amusement park. Hina casually remarks that it has only been about 2 months for her, which surprises Kazuaki, who notes that this means she comes quite often. Kiara then calls out to Satori, catching her attention. After a brief pause, Satori suddenly addresses everyone, announcing that she has prepared something for them, so they do not get too carried away. The others turn toward her in curiosity as she reveals that it is a travel guide. Surprised, they question it, and Satori explains that they will follow what is written in the guide throughout the day. Hina jokes that she is acting like a teacher, while Rui asks if this is supposed to be a school trip. Satori, maintaining a confident expression, adds that she has also secured priority passes, which impresses everyone. Kazuaki praises her preparation but admits that if she does so much, he will not be able to properly thank her and will only feel more indebted. She dismisses his concern, saying she is doing it because she wants to. As she walks ahead, she reassures herself that this is how a reliable older sister should act. In her imagination, she envisions Kazuaki saying he cannot live without her and hugging her, which motivates her further to make him rely on her more. Suddenly, Hina excitedly points out a mascot, calling it cute. Satori, unable to contain her excitement, stares at it with a bright expression and begins reacting enthusiastically to everything around her. She excitedly points out other attractions, takes pictures, and becomes amazed by the rides, even questioning whether some of them are safe because they appear much bigger than in pictures. Kiara notices her behavior and, after observing her for a moment, gently asks if it is her first time at an amusement park. Without turning, Satori admits that her parents were strict, and she never had the chance to visit places like this. The others react with concern, while Satori blushes in embarrassment, realizing that she was supposed to act like the adult, but is the one getting carried away the most. She internally justifies herself, thinking that she spent all her time studying and never had the opportunity to enjoy experiences like this with friends. Kiara then suggests that, in that case, they should make the most of the day and have fun. Kazuaki adds that although she said they should not get carried away, she is always composed and reliable, and that she deserves to enjoy herself too. Hearing this, Satori blushes and thanks him. She then openly declares that she will do just that. The scene shows her fully embracing the moment, taking pictures with mascots, enjoying herself while drinking, and eagerly suggesting that they ride the next attraction. Watching her, Kazuaki thinks that he is glad to see her enjoying herself. Meanwhile, Hina notices that it is still morning, yet Satori is already drinking, observing this with a mix of surprise and concern. Rui happily commented that going to an amusement park was a lot of fun. Hina agreed, though she remarked that the group lineup was pretty unusual. Kiara added that it was fun hanging out with everyone from the study group, while Rui thanked her for inviting her along. Smiling warmly, Kiara told her not to mention it. Suddenly, Kiara stumbled slightly, but Rui quickly caught her and asked if she was okay. Kiara quietly reassured her that she was fine. Watching the interaction, Hina noticed the oddly sparkling atmosphere between them. Just then, an employee called for the next group to come forward and explained that the ride seated 2 people at a time, meaning everyone would need to pair up. When they looked ahead and saw the roller coaster, all 4 girls became tense, each internally thinking that they should be the one sitting next to Kazuaki. Kiara hesitantly asked what they should do. Rui immediately turned to Kazuaki and, smiling sweetly, asked whether he was really okay with such an intense ride and offered to sit beside him if he was scared. Hina and Satori were shocked, both realizing that Rui had taken the initiative first. Not wanting to lose, Hina quickly claimed that she was a little scared to ride alone, even though internally she admitted she was not scared at all. Satori then added that it was her first time riding something like that, so she was not sure how to ride it properly. Internally, however, she desperately hoped he would sit next to her. After hearing them, Kazuaki casually concluded that the issue was settled. The girls immediately looked at him expectantly. However, once everyone boarded, Hina and Rui ended up sitting together, while Kiara and Satori paired up. Kazuaki sat alone and calmly stated that he would be fine by himself. All 4 girls were stunned and internally questioned why he did not want to sit next to any of them, despite believing he was interested in them. After getting off the ride, each of them secretly resolved that they would succeed next time. Hina immediately declared that on the next ride she would definitely get her way and proposed settling it with rock, paper, scissors. Everyone agreed. After the match, Kazuaki ended up sitting with Kiara, while Rui, Hina, and Satori sat together. During the ride, Kiara looked genuinely happy while enjoying herself. Meanwhile, the other 3 watched with visibly disappointed expressions. After the ride, Kiara happily asks if it was fun. Hina quietly agrees, while Rui also responds affirmatively, though both of them still look visibly downcast. Afterward, Hina suggested taking a short break. Rui quickly offered to go buy drinks for everyone. Although the others told her it was unnecessary and that she must be tired, Rui insisted that she could handle it and walked away. Hina thanked her. Kazuaki then said he would go help her, surprising Hina slightly before she agreed. He followed Rui and found her standing unsteadily. Concerned, he grabbed her hand and asked if she was okay. Blushing, Rui called out his name. He pointed out that she had been swaying a little. Rui explained that she had simply gotten dizzy from the ride. Kazuaki told her she should have rested on a bench for a while. Rui admitted that everyone was having so much fun and that she did not want to ruin the mood. He then reminded her that she had always been bad with those kinds of things, recalling how she used to get motion sickness whenever they rode buses or cars together. Embarrassed, Rui admitted that she thought she could at least handle amusement park rides. Kazuaki then handed her some motion sickness medicine, explaining that he had predicted this might happen and prepared it in advance. Surprised, Rui watched as he walked away, telling her to sit down and wait while he bought the drinks himself. Sitting quietly, she reflected that he still remembered those things about her. When he returned and handed her the drink, she thanked him, though she admitted she could not exactly say she looked very cool right then. Sitting beside her, Kazuaki reassured her that he always wanted her to seem cool, especially in front of the other girls. Hearing that, Rui realized again that he truly liked the cool side of her. However, she sadly admitted that things were not really going well. At that moment, Kazuaki stood up and gently patted her on the head, telling her that he always thought she was cool before suggesting they return to the others. Rui blushed intensely. Back with the group, Kazuaki apologized for making everyone wait. Hina cheerfully welcomed them back while excitedly reacting to one of the snacks. The group then relaxed while eating and drinking together. Satori happily announced that it was her first time eating churros, while Hina casually asked how much they cost. However, Hina quickly noticed Rui's flushed expression and immediately became suspicious, thinking that something definitely happened between the two of them. Meanwhile, Kazuaki internally worried that trying to imitate Rui by patting her on the head might have been creepy, and concluded that he had messed up again. Watching his uneasy expression, Hina became even more convinced that something had definitely taken place between them. Hina complained that they had already gone on all the rides she wanted to try. Rui immediately added that they had also gone on all the rides she wanted to go on. Satori then admitted that she forgot to include it in the guide, but she still wanted to check out the souvenir shops. Hina agreed that it sounded good. However, when she turned toward Kazuaki, she realized he was gone. With a tense expression, she asked where he had gone. Satori looked around in confusion and pointed out that he had been there just a second ago. Hina immediately wondered if he had gotten lost again. Rui, also looking tense, commented that Akikon had always been bad with directions. Hina then realized that this was probably why he got lost the other day as well. Kiera suggested trying to call him. After attempting to contact him, she reported that he was not answering. Hina then proposed that they split up and search for him, and Rui agreed. The scene shifts to Hina walking through the amusement park while thinking that getting lost even at an amusement park was kind of funny. Still, she wondered where he had gone. Suddenly, she spotted a crying little girl, with Kazuaki standing awkwardly beside her. The moment Hina saw him, she realized she had finally found him. Walking up to them, she jokingly asked why he was making a little kid cry. Relieved to see her, Kazuaki immediately called out to her and admitted that he thought he was about to have the police called on him. Confused, Hina asked what had happened. Kazuaki explained that he had dropped his phone and came across the lost child while searching for it. He said he had been looking around for her parents nearby, but then the little girl suddenly started crying, leaving him unsure what to do. Hina understood the situation and internally thought that, although he was clumsy, he was also kind. She then asked whether he had found his phone yet. He admitted that he had not. After hearing that, Hina suggested that they should look for the girl's mother first. She gently reassured the child that Kazuaki was not scary and suggested that they search for her mommy together. The little girl wiped away her tears and agreed. As they walked, she explained that she came with both her mommy and daddy. Hina warmly responded, but the little girl suddenly asked if the two of them were married. Blushing immediately, Hina reacted in shock while Kazuaki nearly burst out laughing. Hina loudly protested, asking whether they really looked married. The little girl innocently answered yes. Embarrassed, Hina awkwardly replied that she understood. However, internally, she started imagining what it would be like if she were actually married to Kazuaki. She imagined the two of them bringing their child to places like this on weekends and thought that he would probably make a great father. The moment she realized what she was imagining, she panicked internally and questioned what she was even thinking about. Soon afterward, they managed to find the little girl's mother. As they walked away afterward, Hina commented that they found them pretty quickly. Kazuaki agreed before sincerely thanking her again, admitting that she had saved him once more. Blushing softly, Hina accepted the thanks, but then suddenly remembered that he still had not found his phone. Kazuaki realized it too, but hesitantly admitted that he would feel bad, making everyone wait even longer, and suggested that they regroup with the others first. Hina agreed, and the two continued walking together. Internally, she thought that it would probably be faster to look for the phone with everyone else helping. However, she suddenly stopped walking and gently tugged the back of his shirt. Kazuaki turned around with a tense expression and called her name questioningly. Blushing heavily, Hina admitted internally that she wanted to stay alone with him a little longer. She wondered if he felt the same way and convinced herself that this was her chance. Thinking back to the warning that someone else might swoop in and take him away, she nervously gulped and told herself that she had to do it. Gathering her courage, she started trying to confess to him. At that exact moment, fireworks suddenly exploded in the background. Kazuaki immediately looked up at the sky in surprise and pointed out the fireworks. Hina also looked up in amazement as he realized that the parade had started. Just then, Rui's voice called out from the side, announcing that they had finally found them. Kiara and Satori were there as well. The moment Hina saw them arrive, her heart skipped a beat. Rui, wearing a slightly gloomy expression, scolded Hina for not contacting them after finding him. Flustered, Hina quickly apologized and explained that Kazuaki had lost his phone. Rui reacted in surprise, but Kiara calmly stepped forward and mentioned that she had actually found it a while ago. Kazuaki thanked her sincerely. Watching the exchange, Hina wondered when Kiara even found the time to do that. Satori then excitedly urged everyone to hurry so they could watch the parade. Everyone agreed. Before leaving, Kazuaki apologized once again and asked Hina what she had been trying to tell him earlier. Hina immediately became tense and started blushing before quietly saying that she would tell him next time. Kazuaki awkwardly accepted her answer. The scene then shows the group walking together as Kazuaki reflects on the day. He thinks about how he had been surrounded by girls the entire time and admits that he feels far more tired than usual. Even so, he realizes that he genuinely had fun and wonders when the last time was that he spent an entire day playing around like that. Suddenly, his expression grows tense as an old memory resurfaces. The scene shifts to the past, where Kiara's older sister excitedly asks him which ride he wants to go on next. Embarrassed, Kazuaki blushes while his own older sister apologizes for bringing her little brother along. Kiara's older sister immediately dismisses the apology, insisting that she was the one who invited them in the first place. She adds that Kazuaki would probably feel lonely if he stayed home by himself. Kazuaki quietly insists that he would have been fine alone, causing his older sister to jokingly remark that she should have just left him at home then. Laughing it off, Kiara's older sister tells them that they should simply focus on having fun that day. She gently pats Kazuaki on the head and points out that he always works hard on his studies, so he deserves to enjoy himself too. Kazuaki remains silent. The memory continues with scenes of them riding attractions together, including a boat ride and a roller coaster. Eventually, Kazuaki gets separated from them again and realizes that he is lost. Remembering his older sister complaining about his terrible sense of direction, he decides that he might as well just head home on his own. At that moment, someone suddenly calls out to him. It is Kiara's older sister. She rushes over and hugs him tightly from behind while calling him Kazu. Shocked and blushing, Kazuaki turns toward her. She scolds him for wandering off and tells him not to disappear like that again. Smiling warmly, she then suggests that they hold hands and grabs his hand herself. The two begin walking together while holding hands, and eventually she intertwines their fingers. Blushing heavily, Kazuaki quietly watches her smile. Back in the present, Kazuaki reflects bitterly on that memory. He realizes that, in the end, she was the one who wandered off somewhere else. He corrects himself internally, admitting that he was actually the one who misunderstood everything and got excited on his own. He convinces himself that her words and actions never truly meant anything to her. Thinking back on it now, he concludes that she was only treating him like a child and never viewed him in a romantic way at all. Suddenly, he stops walking and becomes tense. He questions why he is still hung up on what happened back then and wonders why those memories had to resurface after spending such a fun day with everyone. At that moment, Kiara notices his gloomy expression and softly calls out to him, asking if he did not have fun. Kazuaki quickly denies it and explains that he was only remembering something from a long time ago. That reminds him of another question, so he asks why she had 4 leftover tickets in the first place. Hina immediately says she had been wondering the same thing. Kiara hesitates before explaining that she originally planned to go with her sisters, but they could not match their schedules. Hina reacts in surprise upon learning that Kiara has sisters, and Kiara reveals that she actually has 3 older sisters. Shocked, Hina reacts loudly to the number, while Rui comments that Kiara really does give off a younger sister vibe. She also remarks that going to an amusement park with siblings sounds nice, and assumes they must all be close. Kiara quietly agrees but admits that they ultimately could not go together after all. The scene then shifts to earlier that night. Kiara's older sister explains that she bought the tickets so all of them could go together, but something came up. She suggests that Kiara should use them to go with her friends instead. Kiara hesitates, but her sister smiles and mentions that Kazu really enjoyed amusement parks, so she is sure he would have fun. She then hands Kiara the tickets and points out that it would also be her first time going somewhere with friends, encouraging her to enjoy herself. Kiara quietly agrees. The scene returns to the present as Hina suddenly calls out to Kiara. Startled, Kiara snaps back to reality. Hina then thanks her for inviting her that day and says she had a lot of fun. Kiara blushes softly, while Rui adds that she enjoyed herself too. Satori awkwardly agrees as well. The group then suggests that they should all come back again sometime. Hearing that, Kiara looks surprised before smiling warmly and agreeing. Suddenly, Hina remembers something important. The scene then shows her taking a group selfie with everyone. Satori asks if they are taking a group photo, and Kiara happily comments that it looks good. Meanwhile, Hina internally celebrates the fact that she now has a photo of Kazuaki. Rui immediately asks her to send the picture later. Satori then declares that the field trip is not over until they leave. Confused, Kazuaki questions whether this had secretly been a field trip the entire time. Kiara smiles gently before saying that her older sister could not come with them today, but next time, she wants her to join them too. Kazuaki awkwardly admits that it feels strange being the only guy in the group. At the same time, Rui, Hina, and Satori all internally react with gloomy expressions, silently begging for there to be no more girls added to the group. The scene then shifts to the school. Hina looks at the photo they took together at the amusement park and smiles to herself. At that moment, one of her friends calls out to her, telling her to come to the cafeteria. Another girl also notices her. As Hina walks out of the classroom, she says she is coming and casually tells Kiara and Kazuaki that she will see them later. Kiara cheerfully says goodbye while standing directly in front of Kazuaki's desk. One of the girls notices this interaction immediately. The second girl then admits that she has been wondering about something for a while now and asks what kind of relationship Hina has with Okabe and Sano. Hina suddenly grows tense before awkwardly replying that they are friends, though even she phrases it uncertainly. The scene then shifts to the cafeteria. The second girl repeats the question, asking if they are really just friends. The first girl then points out that Hina has not been hanging out with them much lately and asks if those two are the reason why. Caught off guard, Hina apologizes and asks if she had really been doing that. The second girl casually explains that she personally does not mind because she recently got a boyfriend herself. Both Hina and the first girl react in complete shock. The first girl immediately asks why she never told them, while Hina excitedly bombards her with questions about when it happened, who the guy is, and how they started dating. Amused, the first girl asks why Hina is suddenly so curious about romance. The second girl then reveals that her childhood friend confessed to her. Both Hina and the first girl blush in surprise at the revelation, and Hina admits that it sounds really nice. Later, while standing in line for food, Hina fidgets nervously. The first girl suddenly comments that she always thought Hina would end up dating Okabe-kun. The second girl adds that from the outside, it looked like Hina and Sano were having an all-out battle over who would get to be with him. Blushing heavily, Hina reacts in embarrassment while the second girl insists that it genuinely looks that way. Eventually, Hina admits the truth that she almost confessed to him. Both girls react in shock. Hina explains that she got caught up in the atmosphere while they were at the amusement park. The first girl immediately asks what would have been wrong with confessing. The second girl then points out that Okabe does not seem like the type to make the first move, suggesting that it is probably better for Hina to be more assertive. However, she also imagines him politely rejecting her by saying that he is glad she feels that way, but wants to focus on his studies right now. Hearing that imagined response, Hina immediately panics and agrees that he absolutely might say something like that. The first girl sympathizes, mentioning that she once got rejected in a similar way because of club activities. She dramatically cries that it would be incredibly awkward to continue sitting next to someone after getting rejected by them. Hina shudders at the thought and nervously reassures herself that it is a good thing she stopped before actually confessing. However, the first girl quickly argues that they do not know what would have happened and insists that Okabe probably likes Hina back anyway. She even says they might already have ended up dating. Still blushing, Hina admits that lately Kiara and several other girls have been hanging around him, and she is scared that someone else might take him away. She explains that her body simply moved on its own because of that fear. The second girl jokes that it really is an all-out battle, while the first girl comments that Okabe-kun is surprisingly popular. The second girl says she understands why Hina feels anxious, but then questions whether he would really be worth dating if he easily turned his attention elsewhere just because other girls were around him. The first girl jokingly calls that clingy behavior. The second girl continues by asking whether Hina would really want to keep dealing with that kind of situation even after dating him. The first girl casually comments that she tends to fall for other people quickly herself, so she would not really mind if a guy felt that way. Hina blushes and quietly admits that she would simply be happy if he liked her and ultimately chose her in the end. She says that as long as that happened, she might even forgive some of the other things. However, she immediately squeals and corrects herself, loudly insisting that she actually would not be okay with it at all. The second girl smiles and calls her a good girl, while the first girl says she genuinely wants Hina to be happy. She then suddenly asks when Hina even fell in love with Okabe-kun in the first place. Hina freezes, and the second girl reminds her about how she used to constantly talk about how Okabe was probably in love with her. Embarrassed, Hina awkwardly explains that a lot of things happened. Internally, she realizes that it was probably because of Kiara that she finally became aware of her own feelings. The second girl then points out that if there are so many girls surrounding him, would it not be better if he confessed first instead of forcing Hina to do it? The moment she hears that, Hina imagines Kazuaki grabbing her hand and confessing his love to her. Just imagining it makes her blush intensely and squeal into her hands, admitting that it would be amazing. The first girl agrees that it really would be nice. Blushing deeply, Hina then realizes that she truly wants him to be the one who confesses first and begins wondering how she could possibly make that happen. An awkward silence follows before the first girl jokingly says that if any of them knew the answer to that, they would already be extremely popular by now. Hina quietly admits that she wonders how Kiara truly feels about Okabe and how Okabe feels about her as well. Suddenly, the second girl urgently tells them to look. The scene reveals Kazuaki and Kiara sitting together at a table, eating lunch together. The first girl immediately reacts in surprise, while the second girl points out that they are eating lunch together alone. The first girl asks Hina if she is really okay with seeing that, while the second girl deliberately asks whether she sees what is happening. Hina immediately puffs up in frustration. Seeing her reaction, the second girl apologizes, joking that this only happened because they invited her to lunch in the first place. The first girl also teases her by asking what happened to the good girl from earlier. Unable to hold herself back anymore, Hina suddenly stands up and loudly declares that she is going over there to confess. Alarmed, the second girl quickly tells her not to rush things. Hina freezes midway and groans in frustration, admitting that she desperately wants to know what they are talking about. However, she then tries calming herself down by reasoning that they are only eating lunch together, which is completely normal for friends. The two girls exchange looks, and the second girl then suggests that if Hina is really that worried about it, they should all go together. The three of them walk over to the table. Hina nervously calls out to Okabe, while the first girl comments that the two of them seem to be having fun. The second girl cheerfully asks if they mind them joining. Kazuaki immediately recoils in fear and internally panics, thinking that the popular extroverted girls have suddenly started hassling him. Terrified, he wonders if he did something wrong. Meanwhile, both of Hina's friends silently cheer her on internally, encouraging her to go for it. The scene then shifts to a confession scene. A girl confesses her feelings to Rui, telling her that she is in love with her. Rui politely thanks her, but apologetically explains that she cannot return those feelings. Nearby, Rui's friend watches the exchange. The scene then shifts to the school hallway. Several students can be heard talking about the famous first years everyone has been discussing. They refer to Rui and her friend as the prince and the knight. mentioning that they have had fan clubs since middle school. As Rui and her friend walk down the hallway together, some girls admire how amazing they look. Another girl starts commenting about the prince, but suddenly notices Rui's chest and awkwardly trails off. The scene then shifts to the classroom. Rui sighs and admits that she hates having to reject confessions, but she also does not want to make her childhood friend cry. Her friend immediately points out that Rui is talking about her childhood friend again. Rui casually changes the subject and mentions that she recently went to the amusement park with Aki-kun. She then gives her friend a souvenir she bought there. Surprised, her friend asks if the two of them went on a date. Rui happily replies that she guesses they did. However, she quickly adds that there were 3 other girls there as well. Almost immediately afterward, she cheerfully insists that Aki-kun only looked at her the entire time and could not take his eyes off her because she was simply too cool that day. Her friend reacts skeptically before bringing up something she has been wondering for a while. She asks whether it is really appropriate to describe Rui as cool when she has such a large chest. Confused, Rui asks what she means before laughing. Her friend continues staring at her while Rui insists that she simply does not understand. When her friend tells her to stop using the nickname Miru Miru, Rui suddenly asks whether she knows what boys like. Without waiting for an answer, Rui enthusiastically lists cars, dinosaurs, and other big things, arguing that boys think big things are cool. Therefore, she concludes that big boobs must also be cool. Her friend is left completely stunned and declares that it is the dumbest thing she has ever heard. Rui casually elaborates, saying that it is more like a warm and enveloping kind of coolness. Her friend reluctantly admits that tastes are subjective. Rui confidently insists that her friend also thinks she is cool and should not be embarrassed about it. Shaking her head, her friend comments on Rui's confidence, before quietly admitting that she personally finds Rui more sexy than cool. The statement completely shocks Rui. Blushing furiously, she stammers in confusion and asks whether her friend has really been looking at her that way. Her friend awkwardly apologizes. Rui immediately complains that apologizing only makes it sound more serious. Her friend apologizes again, and Rui awkwardly repeats the apology back. Her friend then explains that she is probably not the only one who thinks that way. The scene briefly shows several girls in class internally agreeing that Rui is both cool and sexy. Hearing that, Rui becomes even more flustered and begins worrying. She reminds herself that Aki-kun likes cool girls. Her friend reassures her that most guys like sexy girls, so she should be fine. Rui immediately rejects the idea and insists that Aki-kun is not like that. Her friend argues that Rui may be expecting too much from him simply because he is her childhood friend. Trying to defend him, Rui lists all of Kazuaki's positive qualities, describing him as earnest, cool, and kind. She then confidently states that he likes cool girls and is in love with her. Her friend interrupts and bluntly tells Rui that men like big boobs. With a completely serious expression, she explains that it is not because they think they are cool, it is because they think they are sexy. Rui is left speechless and struggles to accept that possibility. Before she can continue arguing, her friend questions why she is still pushing the topic. After a pause, Rui decides that even if that were true, she still believes in her own definition of what is cool. She also declares that she trusts Aki-kun. Determined, Rui announces that she will not give up on being cool. Her friend smiles and says that sounds much more like her. Immediately brightening up, Rui asks if that means she is cool after all. Her friend confirms that she is, causing Rui to celebrate happily. The conversation then shifts when her friend remarks that Kazuaki seems to be just as popular as Rui herself. Confused, Rui asks what she means. Her friend points out that he brought 4 girls to the amusement park with him and was even seen holding hands with another girl the other day. The comment instantly wipes the smile from Rui's face. Her friend jokingly calls him a real philanderer. Rui remains completely silent. After a brief pause, her friend asks a simple but devastating question whether this childhood friend of hers is really in love with her after all. Rui responds with nothing but a cold, death-like stare. The scene continues with Rui's friend asking a question that leaves the room silent. She wonders whether Rui's childhood friend is really in love with her after all. Rui maintains a completely expressionless stare. Internally, she immediately insists that, of course, Aki-kun is in love with her. After all, he told her that himself, didn't he? However, despite trying to reassure herself, doubt begins creeping in. She quietly wonders whether he really is in love with her. The school bell suddenly rings. The scene then shifts to Kazuaki's classroom. Someone calls out to him, saying that a first-year student is looking for him. Hearing that, Kazuaki immediately wonders if it might be Rui. When he steps outside, he instead finds Rui's classmate waiting for him. Confused, he asks who she is. She introduces herself as Rui's classmate and explains that Rui left school early that day but accidentally left all of her belongings behind. Handing him a bag, she mentions that she heard he lives near Rui and asks if he could bring the items to her after school. Kazuaki agrees but asks why Rui left early. The girl simply replies that he can ask Rui himself before excusing herself and leaving. As she walks down the hallway, she thinks to herself that this is about as much as she can do and that the rest is up to Rui. Back in the classroom, Hina notices the interaction and immediately asks Kazuaki whether that was yet another girl. Flustered, he quickly denies it. However, while responding, he finds himself wondering whether Rui is okay. The scene then shifts to Rui's apartment. Rui is lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling. She reflects on the fact that she ended up leaving school early and questions whether Aki-kun is really not in love with her. She wonders if he might actually be in love with someone else. She recalls collapsing at school earlier and feels embarrassed that the shock affected her so much that she developed a fever. Thinking about it, she cannot believe she was caught off guard so easily. Sitting up on her bed, she admits that she has been trying not to think about it, but the possibility that he was never into her keeps returning to her mind. She then remembers her friend's advice, telling her that she should have simply asked him directly. After all, they have been friends since childhood, and she was always confident that he would say yes. Curling up on the bed, Rui realizes that after all this time, she is too scared to ask. She clenches her hand and admits something she has never said aloud. The only reason she was able to become the cool person she is today was because of Aki-kun. She worked so hard to become the version of herself that he would like. In many ways, she feels that he made her who she is. Now, however, she begins wondering if everything she believed might have been wrong. A memory flashes through her mind of Kazuaki, telling her that she is always so cool. The memory causes her to suddenly sit upright. Realizing how uncharacteristically insecure she is acting, she decides that this is not like her at all. Determined, she tells herself that she has to ask him directly whether he likes her or not. Only then can she continue being the cool version of herself. Just then, the doorbell rings. Rui leaves her room and walks to the front door. Looking through the screen, she sees Kazuaki standing outside. Meanwhile, Kazuaki thinks that he bought some jelly just in case, and reflects that it has been a long time since he last visited Rui's apartment. The moment Rui opens the door, her face brightens. Happily, she calls out his name. Kazuaki awkwardly explains that her classmate asked him to bring her belongings. Rui thanks him. After handing everything over, Kazuaki prepares to leave, but Rui suddenly grabs him. She explains that her mother is not home right now and admits that she feels a little anxious, asking if he could stay for a while. Surprised, Kazuaki asks whether she is really okay. Rui reassures him that she does not have a cold and would have been fine resting in the infirmary. She explains that her friend simply worries too much. Trying to appear cheerful, she insists that she is completely fine now. Kazuaki accepts the explanation. Rui then notices the jelly he brought and immediately becomes excited, saying that she loves that flavor. Kazuaki awkwardly admits that he remembered. Smiling, Rui points out that they used to eat that jelly together all the time in that room. After a brief nostalgic pause, she offers to get them something to drink and tells him to wait. Kazuaki immediately objects, saying that he is worried she might get sicker and that he should probably leave. Rui suddenly insists that he wait and quickly leaves the room. Watching her go, Kazuaki begins thinking that something definitely feels off about Rui today. His attention then drifts to the photographs displayed around the room. At that moment, Rui suddenly appears behind him and asks if the pictures bring back memories. She points to one photo and explains that it was taken when they were in kindergarten. Then she points to another and reminds him that it was from their elementary school entrance ceremony, mentioning that he ran over to her that day. As she places snacks on the table, she explains that they did not see each other very much during middle school, so there are not many photos from that period. However, she admits that even during those years, she kept trying to become cooler and cooler. Kazuaki awkwardly comments that she suddenly gained a huge number of fans during middle school, which honestly made it harder for him to talk to her. Rui seems surprised by that. She quietly admits that she always hoped they could go back to spending time together like they used to. After a pause, she confesses that she always wanted them to be able to hang out the way they did back then. Suddenly, Rui grabs Kazuaki by the shoulders and pushes him onto the bed. Before he can react, she positions herself above him. Looking directly into his eyes, she asks whether, even if he spends time with other people, she is still the only one who is truly special to him. Then, with all of her doubts finally laid bare, she directly asks him whether he likes her. Kazuaki can only stare back at her with a tense expression. Rui remained above Kazuaki and nervously asked whether he liked her. Kazuaki froze with a tense expression. Still leaning over him, Rui hesitated. Suddenly, her friend's earlier words flashed through her mind that she was kind of sexy, and that boys liked her not because she was cool, but because she was sexy. Her face instantly turned bright red. Flustered, she hurriedly insisted that she did not mean it in a sexy way. Hearing that, Kazuaki became even more confused. Internally, he wondered if she meant it as a childhood friend instead. Rui remained blushing while still above him, and Kazuaki continued lying on the bed, thinking that Rui really had been acting strangely all day. Still blushing, Rui awkwardly tried to continue speaking. However, Kazuaki wondered if she might simply still be feeling under the weather. He gently called her name and began by saying that first of all. Before he could finish, the front door suddenly opened. Rui's mother entered the room and immediately saw the two of them. Rui turned toward her mother, while Kazuaki froze with an embarrassed expression. Completely shocked, Rui's mother screamed and demanded that he get away from her daughter. Both Rui and Kazuaki immediately screamed in surprise. Rushing over, Rui's mother hugged Rui tightly and anxiously asked whether she was okay and whether Kazuaki had done anything to her. Panicking, Rui hurriedly told her mother to calm down and insisted that it was not what it looked like. She told her to look more closely because it was Aki-kun. Kazuaki remained frozen with a tense expression. After taking a closer look, Rui's mother finally recognized him. Her shocked expression immediately turned into a cheerful smile as she realized he was that Aki-kun. She happily commented on how much he had grown since the last time she saw him. She remarked that he had become so tall and fondly remembered how tiny he used to be whenever he came over. Then, her expression suddenly turned blank again as she asked what the two of them had been doing on top of the bed, reminding them that they were still in high school. Embarrassed, Rui called out to her mother and quickly explained that Kazuaki had only come to return the things she left behind at school. Realizing the misunderstanding, Rui's mother finally understood and thanked Kazuaki for bringing everything over, even though he was in a different grade. She then cheerfully offered to bring out some sweets, mentioning that they still had the ones he liked and that Rui still ate them. With a completely straight face, she suggested they sit down and have a nice, long talk over some tea. Embarrassed, Kazuaki apologized and explained that Rui still seemed to be feeling a little sick, so he thought it would be best for him to head home for the day. Understanding, Rui's mother accepted his decision. The scene then shifts outside Rui's apartment. Standing by the entrance, Rui apologizes for everything and admits that it must have caught him off guard. Kazuaki smiles awkwardly and comments that he is glad to see her mother is still as lively as ever. Quietly, Rui thanks him for coming over that day. Kazuaki tells her not to worry about it. As they both blush, Rui internally panics. She worries that she went too far again, and that her mother definitely misunderstood the situation. She insists to herself that they were not doing anything naughty. She only wanted to ask him in a cool way. She reminds herself that she is supposed to be cool, and that this was never how she imagined it turning out. Meanwhile, Kazuaki quietly reflects on Rui. He remembers what happened back then, what happened earlier that day, and recalls Rui saying that she always wanted them to hang out the way they used to. He begins wondering whether Rui was simply jealous as his childhood friend. Thinking back, he realizes that in the past, he really did spend almost all of his time with her. Looking at Rui again, he finally brings up what just happened. Rui quietly waits for him to continue. Instead of answering her confession, Kazuaki apologizes if he made her worry. Confused, Rui wonders what he means by making her worry. Meanwhile, Kazuaki thinks that if they started hanging out the way they did back then, maybe it would ease her worries. He then suggests that they should spend time together again someday. Just the two of them, like they used to. However, he also admits that he honestly cannot remember what they actually used to do together. Hearing that, Rui immediately blushes before happily agreeing. Kazuaki smiles and tells her that she has to rest first and get completely better. He then says he will see her later before turning around and leaving. Rui quietly replies that she will. As she watches him walk away, she begins thinking to herself. She wonders if what he said means that he really likes her after all. Unable to contain herself, She excitedly convinces herself that it is finally okay to get her hopes up. Just then, her mother calls out from inside the house, asking whether she is feeling okay. Before Rue can answer, her mother casually adds that they should talk in detail about what just happened. Rui snaps back to reality and heads inside while thinking that trying to explain everything to her mother would probably be far too troublesome. Instead, she simply explains that it was nothing and that she only got a little dizzy, which was why they ended up in that position. Relieved, her mother happily declares that she knew her Rui-chan would never do anything naughty like that. Rui quietly agrees. The scene then shifts back to school. Excitedly, Rui tells Mirumiru that they are going to hang out together next time. Mirumiru congratulates her. With a bright smile, Rui thanks her and says it is all thanks to her advice. Mirumiru immediately tells Rui to stop calling her by that nickname. Rui happily says she is already looking forward to it. Meanwhile, Mirumiru watches her with a tense expression and internally realizes that Rui never actually asked Kazuaki properly about his feelings. She quietly wonders whether Rui is really okay with leaving things like that. The scene then shifts to Satori's house. Satori is lying in the living room and lets out a long sigh, saying that she is finally done with her assignments. While checking the time on her phone, she realizes that there is still some time left before she has to go to Kazuaki's place. She suddenly shakes herself and wonders if she might be taking things too far. After sniffing lightly, she questions whether she is still good to go. She falls silent. The scene then shifts to the bathroom. Satori is relaxing in the bathtub while internally celebrating her first bath in 4 days. She insists that it is not because she dislikes bathing. Rather, whenever she gets busy, she simply cannot bring herself to do it. Then she remembers that she is heading to a high school boys' room afterward. Blushing, she immediately wonders if that is kind of naughty. A moment later, she gets out of the bath. While applying soap, she repeatedly tells herself that there is absolutely no hidden meaning behind any of this. As she pumps more soap and continues washing herself, she insists that she is merely cleaning away 4 days' worth of sweat and grime. Afterward, she stands up, opens the cabinet, and takes out a trimmer. Internally, she insists that it is just in case. Later, she steps out while covering herself with a towel. Remembering that her mother received a free sample of body lotion, she decides to use some just to be safe. Standing in front of the mirror, she carefully examines herself. She concludes that she probably looks about 20% better than usual. She remembers trying her best to look good at the amusement park, but admits that she did not go nearly this far back then. To be honest, she can barely remember half of that day. She remembers having fun, but before she knew it, she was lying in her own bed, and her entire body was aching. She cannot even remember how she managed to get home. With a tense expression, she quickly dismisses the thought. She insists that she simply tried too hard to be a responsible older sister and that it definitely was not because of alcohol. After all, Kazuaki managed to blow off some steam. It has been a while since she last went over to tutor him, and the two of them have not been alone together for quite some time. She begins thinking that Kazuaki must have a lot pent up as well. Suddenly, her imagination starts running wild. In her fantasy, Kazuaki tells her that she smells good and that her skin feels silky smooth. He wraps his arms around her. Flustered, she calls out his name. The fantasy continues as Kazuaki lies on the bed and moves above her while admitting that he cannot focus on studying. Immediately afterward, Satori snaps back to reality. Thinking that there is no way that would ever happen, she laughs at herself. At that exact moment, her mother suddenly shouts from outside the bathroom, demanding to know how much longer she plans on staying in there, and asking whether it is not about time for her to move out. The scene then shifted to Kazuaki's apartment. As Satori stepped inside, she cheerfully greeted him, thanking him for having her over. Kazuaki welcomed her with a casual greeting. Trying to act confident, Satori prepared to begin the study session. However, deep down, she was eagerly wondering whether her appearance looked more attractive than usual and secretly hoped Kazuaki would pay a little more attention to her. As she stood there, her expression suddenly stiffened. After glancing down and reaching behind her back, she realized something horrifying: she had forgotten to put on a bra before leaving home. Earlier, she had been applying lotion and decided to let it dry for a while, completely forgetting about it afterward. Panic immediately set in. She nervously wondered whether Kazuaki had already noticed. Looking at him, however, it seemed as though he hadn't. Even so, she knew it was only a matter of time before he realized. As the reality of her situation sank in, Satori internally panicked. She cursed her bad luck, thinking that she had to wear a white sweater of all things. In her mind, she lamented that the shape and even the color were visible far too clearly. Frustrated with herself, she thought about how she had wanted to make Kazuaki swoon by showing him a different side of herself. Realizing how badly that plan had backfired, she mentally called herself an idiot. Blushing intensely, she silently begged Kazuaki not to look in her direction. At the same time, she worried about what would happen if he noticed. In her imagination, she pictured him accusing her of showing up to teach without wearing a bra and calling her a pervert. The thought immediately made her even more flustered. She desperately wanted Kazuaki to see her as a reliable older sister, not as some pervert. Once again, she silently pleaded for him not to look. However, when she glanced over at him, she found him completely focused on studying. Seeing that, a different feeling surfaced within her. Part of her wanted him to look at her. Internally, she demanded that he at least show some interest. Then, a different possibility suddenly crossed her mind. Maybe it did not look that strange after all. After all, she had ridden the train on her way there, yet she had not noticed anyone looking at her. Even so, her thoughts quickly turned gloomy. She admitted to herself that her chest was on the larger side, but she usually slouched. She also considered herself nothing more than a plain and gloomy introvert. Looking at Kazuaki once again, she began wondering whether nobody paid attention to her at all. Even while she was doing something this humiliating, perhaps nobody even noticed. Tears gradually formed in her eyes as her thoughts became increasingly negative. She convinced herself that Kazuaki showed absolutely no interest in her. She had believed that, at the very least, Kazuaki liked her. Yet, even in a situation like this, he seemed completely unaffected. She became painfully aware of every movement and convinced herself that everything was obvious. Trembling with embarrassment, she concluded that nobody paid any attention to her at all. In that moment, she convinced herself that she was nothing more than an invisible pervert. Just then, Kazuaki suddenly called out to her. Hearing her name, Satori remained silent. Kazuaki then stood up and remarked that she did not look very well. He told her to wait a moment and mentioned that it was a little chilly that day. Approaching from behind, he gently draped a blanket over her shoulders and told her that she could use it. Caught completely off guard, Satori froze in shock. A moment later, her face turned red. Quietly thanking him, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. In her mind, she concluded that Kazuaki had been paying attention after all. More importantly, she convinced herself that he had not noticed anything. Feeling grateful, she wrapped the blanket around herself. Meanwhile, a faint blush appeared on Kazuaki's face. Internally, he questioned whether he had seen something a moment earlier. Despite Satori's relief, Kazuaki had, in fact, noticed. The scene then shifts to the classroom. The teacher announces that Sano-san will be the sports festival committee representative for their class. As the class applauds, Kiara stands beside her desk while the teacher adds that everyone is counting on her. Hina watches with a cheerful expression, while Kiara looks proud of herself. Afterward, Hina admits that she did not expect Kiara to volunteer for something like that. Kiara casually replies that she actually wanted to do it together with Kazu-kun. Surprised, Kazuaki reacts, but Kiara points out that only one person per class is allowed. Hina agrees and then comments that Kiara has been unusually proactive lately, not just with this, but in general. She points out that Kiara never would have volunteered for something like this before. Blushing slightly, Kiara explains that she wanted to change. She then proudly declares that she made up her mind to be bolder this year. Hina reacts with mild confusion before accepting the explanation. Kiara then mentions that there is already a committee meeting after school that day. Hina wishes her good luck. However, as soon as she hears that, a thought occurs to her. Since Sano-san will not be around after school, this means she finally has a chance to walk home with Okabe without Kiara getting in the way. Excitedly, she imagines bringing up the promise they made the other day and planning out their date together. In her imagination, if everything goes well, he will even confess to her. Convinced that this is her chance, she gathers her courage and calls out to Kazuaki. When he looks at her, she nervously asks if he has any plans after school. Kazuaki casually replies that he does not. Fidgeting nervously, Hina struggles over her words before finally asking whether he would like to walk home together. Kazuaki pauses briefly before agreeing. Internally, Hina immediately celebrates. The scene then shifts to the two of them, walking home together. Hina brings up the sports festival and asks whether he has decided which event he will participate in. Kazuaki admits that he wants something easy where he will not have to run. Hina quickly agrees and says she feels the same way. Kazuaki explains that he would simply feel bad if he lost. Hina agrees and says they should leave those events to the students who actually belong to sports clubs. Kazuaki comments that Hina seems like she would be good at sports. Caught off guard, Hina immediately denies it. Blushing, she explains that although she likes sports, she is actually very slow and tends to fall over. Kazuaki quietly responds that he understands. Internally, he remembers something. Hina then asks whether he is bad at sports himself. Kazuaki explains that he played a lot of sports back in elementary school. Surprised, Hina responds positively. However, she quickly realizes that she is getting distracted. Talking with him is fun, but that is not why she asked him to walk home with her. She reminds herself that she still needs to bring up the date. Gathering her courage again, she calls out to him. Kazuaki responds and asks what is wrong. Hina nervously asks whether he remembers that thing they talked about the other day. Confused, Kazuaki asks which thing she means. Embarrassed, Hina starts trying to explain that she means the two of them going. Before she can finish, rain suddenly begins pouring down. Both of them are completely shocked. Hina immediately panics and shouts in surprise. The two start running while covering their heads with their hands. Hina complains that the rain appeared completely out of nowhere and admits that she did not bring an umbrella. Kazuaki calmly explains that he has a compact umbrella. He takes one out. Seeing it, Hina is stunned and immediately realizes that they could share it. However, instead of opening it for both of them, Kazuaki hands it to her and tells her to use it. Before she can properly thank him, he suddenly dashes off toward the station. Hina stares in disbelief. She cannot believe how fast he is. Internally, she becomes frustrated because she wanted to share the umbrella with him. After finally getting some alone time together, she cannot believe he is running away. To make matters worse, she still has not brought up the date. Desperately, she calls out for him to wait. Kazuaki stops and turns around in confusion. Hina quickly walks up to him while holding the open umbrella. Determined, she tells him that they are going to share it. Kazuaki immediately becomes tense. Hina scolds him for trying to run away like that. Blushing, Kazuaki explains that if they share an umbrella, people might get the wrong idea. Blushing as well, Hina asks why that should matter. Confused, Kazuaki can only stare at her. As rain continues falling, Hina's shoulder begins getting wet. She then points out that they were already mistaken for a married couple at the amusement park, so she does not see why it matters now. After thinking about it, Kazuaki reluctantly agrees. Hina then quietly admits that she would not mind if they acted even more like a couple. As she moves closer and presses against him, she internally thinks about going on a date together. Their faces draw closer. For a moment, neither of them says anything. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the rain stops. The sun comes back out. Immediately, Hina jumps back in embarrassment and loudly points out that it suddenly became sunny again. Kazuaki is blushing as well. Flustered, Hina quickly hands back the umbrella and thanks him for letting her use it. She then announces that she is heading a different way and begins running off. Kazuaki awkwardly acknowledges her. Hina calls out that she will see him tomorrow before hurrying away. The scene shows her running while still blushing. The story then shifts back to school. Hina complains to her two friends that she never managed to bring up the date. The first girl reassures her that it is fine and tells her not to worry about it. The second girl then points out that despite saying that, Hina looks surprisingly happy. The scene then shifts to the classroom. While sitting at his desk, Kazuaki recalls Kiara calling him Kazu-kun. He remembers her saying it with a cute smile, then again while blushing, and again with the same affectionate tone. As the memories repeat in his head, he thinks about how it happened every single day. Sano-san would always come over and talk to him. The scene shows Kiara standing beside his desk as usual. Then she walks away. Watching her leave, Kazuaki realizes that she is not doing that anymore. As he watches her go, he develops a tense expression and wonders if she really was interested in him after all. At that moment, Hina comments that Sano-san seems busy lately. Kazuaki replies that the committee meetings must be taking up a lot of her time. However, internally, he reaches a different conclusion. He convinces himself that he knew it all along. Maybe she was simply having fun watching him get flustered. And now, perhaps she has grown bored of it. Meanwhile, Hina excitedly starts calling out to him and asks if he wants to walk home together, only to suddenly realize that he is already gone. The scene then shows Kazuaki walking through the hallway. As he walks, he thinks that if that really is the case, then it is perfectly fine with him. After all, she has been around him so much lately that he has barely had time to focus on studying. Deciding that he should get back on track, He resolves to spend the afternoon studying in the library. Just then, he notices someone carrying a large stack of supplies. Looking more closely, he realizes it is Kiara. Surprised, he calls out to her. Kiara shifts the items she is carrying so she can see him properly and immediately brightens up. Smiling happily, she greets him. Keeping a straight face, Kazuaki comments that she is carrying a lot of things. Kiara explains that the sports festival is tomorrow, so she is transporting supplies to the storage room. Without hesitation, Kazuaki offers to help. He takes about half of the load from her arms. Kiara looks surprised before happily thanking him. Kazuaki blushes slightly. Internally, he reminds himself that he was supposed to be studying. However, as they begin walking together, he realizes that he cannot simply ignore her. Trying to make conversation, he asks how the committee meetings have been going. Kiara admits that she does not know any of the people there and has not really talked to anyone. She says she mostly spent the meetings spacing out. Then, blushing slightly, she reveals that she was thinking about him the whole time. Kazuaki immediately blushes. Awkwardly, he says he understands. At the same time, he desperately tells himself not to get the wrong idea. Eventually, they arrive at the storage room. Kazuaki asks if this is the place. Kiara confirms that it is and thanks him again. With a tense expression, Kazuaki tells her good luck with the committee work. She thanks him. Internally, he decides that he needs to hurry up and study so he can get rid of these thoughts. As he turns to leave, he reaches for the door. However, it refuses to open. Kiara notices immediately. Kazuaki tries again before announcing that it is not opening. A moment later, he realizes what that means. They are locked inside. Turning toward Kiara, he begins panicking. Stammering, he tells her not to worry. Kiara calmly replies that it is okay. Trying to stay composed, Kazuaki suggests finding a window or something so they can escape. Kiara points out that there are no windows. Kazuaki insists that something must have jammed the door, and that is why it will not open. Kiara calmly disagrees. Growing increasingly nervous, Kazuaki demands to know why the door is closed in the first place, insisting that he did not shut it. Kiara suddenly laughs. Confused, Kazuaki looks at her. Still smiling, she tells him that he is acting exactly like before. Kazuaki immediately remembers the incident in the mountains behind the school. Kiara quietly tells him that she is not talking about that. Then, with a gentle smile and a slight blush, she says she means a long, long time before that. Kazuaki becomes even more confused. Kiara repeats that this really is just like him. Internally, Kazuaki panics. He wonders what she means by a long time ago. As far as he remembers, they only met during their second year of high school. He also cannot understand what she means by saying that he is acting like himself. Before he can ask further, Kiara suddenly brings up another possibility. She quietly points out that if they really are locked inside and nobody comes until tomorrow morning, then the two of them will be completely alone together all night. Kazuaki immediately turns bright red. Looking at her, he desperately tells himself that there cannot possibly be any deeper meaning behind what she is saying. However, Kiara continues speaking. She points out that they have not really been able to talk much lately. At the same time, Kazuaki begins wondering whether there actually is a deeper meaning after all. Slowly, Kiara raises a finger and points toward him. Then she gently places her finger against his chest, right above his heart. Moving closer, she softly says that it makes things even more nerve-wracking. Their faces are now very close together. Blushing intensely, Kazuaki can only stare at her. Kiara quietly asks if he feels the same way. At that exact moment, the door suddenly opens. Rui appears in the doorway alongside another girl. Cheerfully, Rui asks whether this is the right place. The other girl confirms that it is and thanks her for helping. Then Rui notices the scene in front of her. She immediately falls silent. A gloomy expression spreads across her face as she asks what Kazuaki and Sano-senpai are doing in there together. Flustered, Kazuaki immediately begins trying to explain. Before he can finish, the other girl calls out to Kiara and reminds her that there are still plenty of supplies left to carry. She tells Kiara that she needs to hurry back. Kiara calmly agrees. Meanwhile, Kazuaki stares at her in confusion. Realizing what happened, he points out that she knew someone would show up almost immediately. Kiara simply smiles. Then she tells him that she will see him later. As she leaves, Kazuaki blushes and develops a tense expression once again. Unable to understand her intentions, he wonders whether she is really doing all of this just for fun. The scene then shifts to the school grounds. Students gather around the field, and tents have been set up for the sports festival. Kazuaki is sitting on a chair with a tense expression as he thinks that the sports festival has finally arrived. Nearby, one of the girls from Class 2 enthusiastically declares that their class is going to win. The rest of the girls raise their hands and cheer in agreement. Hina, who is sitting beside Kazuaki, smiles brightly and tells him that they should do their best too. Kazuaki agrees before commenting that she seems especially fired up today. Hina happily replies that she totally is. She proudly points out that she even braided her hair and asks if it looks cute. Kazuaki simply replies that it does. Hina smiles, but internally wishes he had actually called it cute. A moment later, Hina notices Kiara. She comments that it looks like Sano-san is busy with committee work even today. Kazuaki casually agrees. Just then, the announcer begins introducing the next event for the first-year students. A crowd of girls immediately lets out excited squeals. The scene shifts to Rui and Miru standing together. Kazuaki looks at Rui and comments that she looks amazing. Hina agrees that Rui is as popular as ever, but points out that she somehow seems different today. Rui smiles to herself. Internally, she reveals that she bound her chest that day. She reminds herself that the sports festival always draws a huge crowd. She also knows that if she does not bind her chest, she cannot really run at full speed. Miru curiously asks whether having a large chest is not supposed to be a good thing. Rui replies that sometimes it is better to keep certain things hidden. Quoting a proverb, she says that a talented hawk hides its claws. Miru repeats the word talented in confusion. Rui simply adds that she plans to give it everything she has today. A moment later, Rui walks over to Kazuaki. She cheerfully greets him before politely greeting Nishina-senpai as well. Hina watches with a tense expression. Rui then reminds Kazuaki about their plans to hang out together. Kazuaki confirms that he remembers. Hina is immediately shocked. Internally, she realizes that Kazuaki is actually going on a date with Rui while she has been doing absolutely nothing. Her expression quickly becomes gloomy. Meanwhile, Rui says that she came up with something fun. Curious, Kazuaki asks what she means. Rui proposes that if she wins the 100-meter dash, she gets to choose where they go and take the lead on their date. She asks if it is a deal. Kazuaki hesitates for a moment before saying that he does not mind. Smiling happily, Rui declares that it is settled. Then, while gently touching the sports headband around his neck, she quietly tells him to keep his eyes on her and not miss a single second. Kazuaki is completely stunned. Rui smiles at him. Nearby, Hina blushes. Kazuaki quietly agrees. Rui then turns around and cheerfully says she will see him later. Watching everything unfold, Hina blushes and internally admits that Rui is incredibly smooth. She suddenly realizes that Rui actually called it a date. Panicking, Hina accepts that it really is a date after all. Trying to change the subject, she asks whether Rui is good at sports. At the same time, she nervously wonders what kind of date Rui has planned. Kazuaki replies that Rui would never have said all of that if she were not confident. Hina quietly agrees. Kazuaki then explains that Rui was not always athletic. Back then, he was actually the faster one. The scene flashes back to their childhood. A younger Rui sadly wonders whether she can really be considered cool if she stays the way she is. She then confidently tells Aki-kun that she is going to become much cooler and that he should just wait and see. The story returns to the present. Kazuaki explains that after making that promise, Rui trained harder than ever. By elementary school, she had become fast enough to compete at the prefectural level. Hina is amazed and says that is unbelievable. Kazuaki agrees before continuing. He says that Rui truly knows who she is. She is sincere, incredibly hardworking, and kind to everyone around her. To him, she really is an amazingly cool person. Hina quietly watches Kazuaki as he talks about Rui. Then she turns and looks toward Rui herself. At that moment, the announcer announces the first-year 100-meter race. Several girls excitedly cheer Rui on. Rui thanks them. Internally, she hopes that Aki-kun is watching her. The starter calls everyone to their marks. Then comes the signal to get set. The starting gun fires. Rui explodes off the starting line. As Kazuaki watches her run, he quietly thinks that is right. He continues watching as Rui races ahead. He reflects that Rui has always been. Rui reaches the finish line. She crosses it first. As he watches her victory, Kazuaki finishes his thought. Rui has always been cool. Suddenly, Rui's chest wrap comes loose. She immediately reacts in alarm. Covering her chest, she crouches down. Kazuaki notices something is wrong and develops a tense expression. Beside him, Hina wonders what happened and points out that Rui is suddenly hunched over. Kazuaki immediately stands up and says that he is going to check on her. Hina quietly responds before telling him to go ahead. Although she looks uneasy, Kazuaki runs straight toward Rui. Calling out her name, he asks what happened. Embarrassed, Rui looks at him. Blushing intensely while covering her chest, she admits that her chest wrap came undone. Kazuaki immediately blushes as well. Still bright red, Rui begs him to go back because she looks ridiculous right now. Realizing the situation, Kazuaki quickly apologizes. Rui groans in frustration. She complains that she wanted to win in style and thought she had completely nailed it. Watching the situation, Miura casually remarks that she saw that coming from a mile away.
By the way, if you enjoyed the video, maybe consider liking and subscribing, pretty please?